Planning board meeting for September 5th, 2024. We have a lengthy agenda here. First, we need to do a roll call. Sorry about that. We know Marty is not in attendance tonight. I'm gonna do a roll call. James Sweeney,
Here.
Yolando,
Here.
Matthew,
Here.
and Tony Gonzalez present. First, I'd like to request a motion for the review of last month's meeting minutes.
Motion to approve August minutes.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, roll call. James,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay, Evan, do we know A&Rs? We have a lot release.
Do have a lot release. It's for Amelia Estates. They are asking to trade a previously released lot back to you guys for two lots, 11 and 14. The work that they have to complete, a single lot will cover it, no problem. So this is fine. We met with them and discussed this. So there shouldn't be any issue with this.
When you say release back to us, what does that mean exactly?
So basically, we're holding two lots right now. So you guys have released one lot already. They're going to give it back to you. You're going to hold that lot and then release two other lots. So they're basically just trading the lots that are being held.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call. James,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay, no street acceptance. First up is the proposed zoning change for the Brockton Fairgrounds. Let Rob May do a review of this.
And since we have several people in the audience that are here, I do want to let them know that this is a public hearing. And I'll ask Tony to then call the public hearing to order and then call roll so that it is official. I'll give an overview of the ordinance. And then the proponents will have an opportunity to speak. And then the opponents will have an opportunity to speak. Following that, the chair can close the public testimony portion of the meeting or hold it open if she so desires for a vote to be held, either discussion and vote held either later today or at another meeting date. But we are up close on time and we would not be able to have a special meeting and proper notification before the date expires. So I am strongly encouraging you to vote this evening. People who are here to speak in support or in opposition, when the hearing opens and you're recognized by the chair, I will unlock your cameras and microphones and you'll be able to see and speak to the board and give your testimony. And at the time your testimony is done, you'll go back into the attendee section. If you want to speak when those sections come up, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you hover your mouse at the bottom of the screen, you will see a menu comes up that says raise your hand icon. Use that so that we can recognize you, please. So, Madam Chair, if you would like to call the hearing to order and do roll again.
Okay, so calling the hearing together for the proposed zoning change for the Brockton Fairgrounds, proposed zoning overlay. Roll call. James Sweeney,
Here.
Yolanda Spinola,
Here.
Matthew Gallagher,
Here.
Tony Gonzalez present. Okay, Mr. May, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening before you is a proposed amendment to Section 27 of the Brockton Code. This Section 27 is where you find the zoning code. The proposal before you is called a Fairgrounds Overlay District. The district is intended to allow a flexible redevelopment of the Brockton Fairgrounds and to promote a blended development of mixed use, residential, commercial, and light industrial. As an overlay district, the applicant has the option of choosing either A, the base district, which is a C2 general business district, or apply under the overlay district for the uses and requirements of that district. So there are two different choices here that the applicant has. Section 1 establishes and delineates the district. So the first section of the ordinance says that this is the Fairgrounds Overlay District, and there will be a map that accompanies it that will be posted with the clerk's office and of course with the planning board or planning department. Section 2 establishes waivers. It identifies the planning board as the granting authority for issuing waivers as a way to address issues that come up rather than having to go through a zoning variance process. Section 3 identifies the planning board as the permit granting authority. The planning board needs to, if a special permit or a site plan comes before this, in the process, it designates the board to take action on it. Section 3 also allows that, or designates that all pre-existing uses on the fairgrounds that are happening right now shall be grandfathered and not require any approval or except for an extension. So everything that's happening there right now would be legitimized or allowed to continue going forward. Section 4 allows permitted as a by right use residential. Any standards that are established or any requirements that are established under residential uses in the regular Brockton City ordinance. The standards for this district, there are no lot minimums or frontage or side yards, but it does establish a 7-story or 85 feet maximum height for a residential building. Further in that section, it allows green space, it allows balconies and roof gardens to be counted towards the green space requirements, of which 15% of the development lot has to be minimum green space. Section 6 allows all principal permitted uses and special permit and accessory uses granted under the C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, and C8 districts. So that's all districts with the exception of mortuaries, gasoline stations, open air or drive-in theaters, car washes, and tattoo parlors. The standards for commercial development, again, there are no minimum lot areas or frontages. However, there is a maximum 70-foot height established, and a 10% of the site needs to be green space. There is in section 8 establishes a technology research and development and light industrial zone or district use, that are permitted by right. Any principal or special permitted or accessory use that's already permitted in an I1, an I2, or an I3 district are permitted as by right in the Fairgrounds Overlay District. In the Technology Research and Development and Light Industrial District, the standards establish a 5% minimum green space for those uses and a maximum height of 85 feet. And again, green space can be served, provided by green roofs and the like. There is in section 10 a mixed use provision allowing multiple uses in buildings and multiple uses on sites, provided that they provide a 10-foot setback between multiple buildings on a site. Parking requirements for residential uses is 1 car per, excuse me, in section 11. Parking requirements, the residential minimum is 1 space per residential unit. The commercial parking is 1 space per 1,000 square feet of office space. Technology and research is 1 space for every 1,000 square feet of office space. Again, there's established a parking waiver where the maximum parking or the minimum parking can be reduced by up to 50% if the planning board finds that it's beneficial to spur the development to make such a waiver based on overall vehicle uses and vehicle demand. It also allows off-site parking. So if the sites are developed up into individual lots or under individual ownership, it is possible for the owner of lot 1 could enter into an agreement to allow their parking on lot 2, which may be owned by a separate person. And that's not unusual in large developments. Loading, it does establish that there are no, excuse me. No standards shall be required for loading in residential districts, and the current zoning requirements shall apply to commercial and the industrial research, development, and light industrial uses. Joint facilities for loading. This ordinance would allow for centralized loading between multiple uses, and again, would allow for the planning board to grant a waiver if there is a finding that the zoning or that the development needs relief from the required zoning loading needs. And that is the end of the text. It does have a legal description, but as we all know, it's the Fairgrounds bound by Belmont Avenue, Thurber, Othello, Forest Avenue, West Street, and back to Belmont again. So that is a brief overview of the text that you have in front of you. And if the board has a question for clarification on what I just summarized, please let me know now. Otherwise, the chair can go back and begin the taking proponent testimony.
Thank you, Rob. This is just a lot of information, and I did read the memo that you sent to the City Council Committee. I'm just wondering why they're not just following proper protocols. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is in the room, and I think if there's discussion of that, we should wait until the proponents are recognized.
Okay.
To ask those questions. But under Massachusetts general law, when a ordinance is introduced by a city councilor, or an ordinance is introduced by a petition of property owners, the planning board has 65 days to which to hold a hearing and make a recommendation back to the city council. The city council also needs to have a hearing within 65 days and make its recommendation back to itself. And then because it's a zoning ordinance, I believe it needs 2 readings after the public hearing in order to pass. But if I'm incorrect on that, I'm sure somebody will correct me in just a minute.
Okay. Planning board members, questions before we open up to the public?
Oh, sorry, one last thing. It will need a supermajority of city council to pass. So, any other board questions before we open this to the public?
Okay, seeing none, we'll now open it to the public who has their hands raised.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to address the board and provide testimony in support of the ordinance, please use the raise your hand icon on your screen. These are people in support first, and I will. Counselor Griffin was there a minute ago. Let's let Andrew Flynn has popped up, and I'm going to let him talk first. Andrew?
Rob, thank you very much. And perhaps if Jim Burke could maybe join me as well, Director, I'd certainly refer to you.
Sure thing. Let me try to find him. Jim, could you use the raise your hand so you go to the top of the list? It'll make it a little bit easier to find you. Thank you very much, sir. Both of you gentlemen are on. If you wish to turn on your cameras, you're more than welcome to.
Let me see.
If I knew how, I'd be happy to. Madam Chairwoman, members of the Planning Board, my name is Attorney Jim Burke with offices at 48 North Pearl Street, Brockton, Massachusetts. I have the pleasure of representing Andrew Flynn and his development team at Copper Mill. And as a preliminary statement, Mr. May, I'd request that my mic be left open throughout the presentation of my client and my client's consultants. Andrew came to me approximately 6 or 8 months ago with the phenomenal news that he had reached an agreement with the owners of the Fairgrounds to enter into a development agreement in order to provide for the 66 acres that are as identified by Mr. May, located in Belmont Forest and West Street in Brockton. And it also borders a residential area. We sat down and realized that we needed to first introduce the project to the city and began having various consultations with Mr. May. We've had numerous meetings with Mr. May. We also provided a development plan, which is a feasibility plan, and the planning department, and we are grateful for and appreciative, provided numerous comments that wound up with many variations of the original plan to provide for suggestions that the planning board requested in terms of the development. Essentially, what you have is a mixed-use development with residential, commercial, and light industrial. The feasibility plan, which will be shown to you, and as was presented and in which information was supplied by Mr. May, basically is a horseshoe, and the horseshoe portion will contain the residential, so that the commercial and industrial space will in fact be buffered from visual information or visual exposure by basically most of the street except for Belmont Street and the residential area of Thurber and Othello. Creatively, and they'll get into this, they created a buffer along Thurber and Othello, and it will be their requirement to go ahead and finish that road, which in fact stops. And much of the land that will be the roadway is actually owned by the Fairgrounds. So it will ultimately go from Belmont Street to Forest Avenue, but it will be entirely residential. It will not have any commercial impact or commercial access along that entire way. You're thus creating a substantial buffer from the residential area, which will eliminate the issues concerning the fact that you have in the central core a commercial and industrial space. The developer put together a team that he's going to present to you that is one of the finest teams in the city of Boston. They are experts and have provided numerous high-end projects throughout New England, throughout the country for their businesses, but as they specialize within the New England area. The proponent realized early on that in order to make this work, there was really one basic fundamental requirement, and that is any developer who was coming in and was going to need to work on a $600 to $1 billion project, and that's what this is going to require that, in fact, you have permitting issues that allow them to develop as of right, subject to site plan approval and other issues. I think the chairman, the planner has identified that there is a bit of a sparseness in terms of dimensional issues that you may have seen before. Well, I'm sure you've been through this process numerous times, but I'll try to reiterate. The Mass statute allows for, in the zoning ordinance change, that an ordinance may be filed actually by a private citizen as well as the counselor. But in this instance, we're really pleased that the ordinance that we filed was co-sponsored by Councilor Griffin and Councilor Minicello. And I think the reason is, and very succinctly, because they understand this will be a transformational opportunity for the city of Brockton. It is incumbent on the developer to work with the city of Brockton in reaching the best level of a zoning change possible, with the requirement, as I indicated, that allowed for relaxed right uses as of right within the zone. We have met with the fire department, the police department, the police chief, the fire chief. We met with Pat Hill. We most recently met with Megan Bridges and Shannon to basically outline the fact that we fully understand that there will be amendments to this zoning change, which we have, since the day we filed it, requested, suggested modifications that the city felt was appropriate and reasonable. And quite frankly, until tonight, we haven't seen any. Mr. May submitted some material today that dealt with an entirely different zoning amendment that, quite frankly, won't be reached, passed, or discussed for probably another year. The way that it works within the statute is that we are required to file with the city council and then immediately be referred to the planning board. The planning board will hear, and the planning board will make a recommendation that's non-binding. So you are not approving the language of this zoning change. Essentially, you are approving the concept of the development of the zoning change as it moves forward to an ordinance hearing before the city council. When we asked you to actually remember that, because if you may see something that is within the language that you think is deficient, I'm sure it will be dealt with in the process as it passes through the city council, where it needs to be approved by a 2/3 majority, as the planner indicated. So what Mr. May has done is he's put together a team that has suggested to the city that if they get their approvals, and they're looking for approvals within the next few months, hopefully, from the city council, they plan on breaking ground on the project in the second quarter of 2025. We haven't had that kind of activity and development in the city of Brockton in decades. This is the first major project the city has had. You've got a developer who has an exceptional track record in Boston, Chelsea, Somerville, They have plans that they're working out in Texas and California. I'll let him describe exactly what the program is. But you have a developer who has Brockton ties, who wants to work on this project, who believes in the project, and knows that it can be successful. They are not in the business not to make money. But in order to secure the necessary financing that's required of a project scope and dimension, it's absolutely imperative that there be liberal zoning associated with the project. If in fact they were required to go through the usual process of a special permit before the Zoning Board of Appeals, or even a variance before the Zoning Board of Appeals in an individual project, the piecemeal development would be such that you would not get the big bang financing that you will need to move this transformational project forward. We believe that the plan that you're going to see is exceptional. It is only a feasibility plan. The one thing everyone should understand, and I think most of the business people on your board do understand, this development will be market driven. Whatever the demands for the marketplace will be fundamentally how they find themselves proceeding. They can't afford to let this slip, because if they do, they're on the hook for the substantial infrastructure, which will be dealt with primarily first before they begin work in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3 of the development. Whether they develop a residential portion first or 2 residential portions, or they're fortunate enough to get a high-end user in the technology field that wants 100,000 square foot R&D facility and manufacturing development, they will build that facility within the core that's identified in the industrial zone. You'll hear from their traffic individuals that they have extensively made sure that there is no interruption of industrial or commercial vehicles that will impact any of the residential structures and residential areas within the proposed development. As previously stated, there will be no commercial impact, trucks, customers, employees that will impact Thurber or Othello Street. The industrial zone or industrial portion, commercial portion, light industrial, tech portion, faces Belmont Street where the current commercial uses stand. The truck vehicles will exit and enter on that portion of Belmont Street. There will be no truck traffic from the facility on the Forest Street side. This plan, in order to go forward, requires as much cooperation from the city as it can get. The quality of the development that you'll see matches the capabilities of the developer who's going to make it a product worthwhile. He's already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the development prospect. He's serious, he's here to stay, and he wants to develop and move Brockton forward with Brockton. But again, the zoning needs to be, as I said, appropriate for the size and scope of this development. So when you make your final determination and you hear from the councils, I believe Councilor Griffin and hopefully Minicello and Texera and Tavares are here. When you hear from the councilors, understand that we work with them and intend to work with them to make this the best product possible. So you are not approving this specific language, which you may like or you may have questions about. You are being asked specifically to approve the concept of the development of this very transformational product. So I'm going to ask that you keep me alive, if you would, but also I'm going to ask you to acknowledge Andrew Flynn, who is the principal of Copper Mill.
Great. Mr. Burke, thank you very much, and thank you for your partnership throughout this entire process. First and foremost, I want to thank the members of the planning board and everybody else that's taken the time to join this evening for your time. We very much appreciate it. And Furthermore, we're incredibly grateful for all of the time that various stakeholders, a breadth and depth of stakeholders across the city, have spent with us over the past 8 months. We're very appreciative for all of the feedback and insight and guidance that they have given us, which has led to the plan, which we will show you shortly. Very importantly, I think we just want to make clear we approach this project with a spirit of stewardship and partnership. We understand that it is, one of the last remaining large contiguous parcels in the city of Brockton. And ultimately, our top priority is to align the interests of all stakeholders across the city to position this site for long-term, responsible, thoughtful success. And I think, the hope is that it can catalyze long-term sustainable economic growth. And ultimately, the way we have envisioned this with the input from many stakeholders, many who are on the calls tonight, many who, we've met with over the past several months, is to really deliver a well-balanced mixed-use ecosystem comprised of a range of uses, including residential, commercial, retail, technology, R&D, and ultimately generate a positive feedback loop that helps sustain the site long-term, but also hopefully generates positive derivative impacts in the surrounding commercial areas and in the surrounding region, being mindful of adjacencies, whether it's some of the low-rise residential fabric, whether it's Brockton High School, whether it's some of the infrastructure and thoroughfare layouts. We have endeavored to really be thoughtful in terms of how we integrate all of that. And I think I will turn it over to Phil Casey, who is our lead designer. He's a principal at CBT Architects based in Boston. We also have our civil engineers on the call tonight, our traffic engineers, our surveyors, Attorney Burke, and a number of other members of our team. And we certainly are all here available to engage in the discussion this evening. And, again, thank you for your time this evening. And we look forward to discussing further. So thank you. And Mr. May, if you wouldn't mind allowing Phil Casey to maybe put his presentation up, that would be great. And
Sure,
thank you,
Mr.
Mr. May,
Casey.
for all of your time over the recent months as well.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure working with you. Mr. Casey, if you could use the raise your hand icon so I can find you easier in the crowd. Thank you very much. I'm going to promote you to panelist. To accept that invitation, you should be able to present your screen, share your screen, and turn on your video and mic.
Great, thank you, everybody. Good evening. Phil Casey with CBT Architects. Let me see if I can just pull up our presentations. Excellent. Can everybody see the presentation now for tonight?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. So good evening again. Phil Casey with CBT Architects in Boston. And very excited to be here tonight to share our vision for the master plan for the Fairgrounds with you. So we'll start with a distant aerial of the site just to kind of orient everybody. I know everybody's familiar with the site. Obviously, the site in the center, and really just a tremendous transformational opportunity, just as everybody said in the call before, not just for the sheer scale of the site, but really its exciting location, we think, at the intersection of a number of neighborhoods. When you look at the site to the north, you've got the residential neighborhood across Belmont Street. You've got a very kind of smaller single-family scale to the east on Thurber Street. And then when you come around to the south, you've got Brockton High, Campanile Stadium, very different kind of use and adjacency to think about. And then obviously sort of the retail corridor that happens in the corner of Belmont Street there. So how do we integrate with all those adjacencies? How do we bring those sort of different neighborhoods together within a site, not just creating placemaking? And then the other really exciting piece we find about this is when you think about, again, the Belmont Street or Route 123 really is the primary thoroughfare into downtown Brockton. As you're coming, the opportunity we have here to kind of create this new visual gateway into downtown, and the opportunity of that being really a visualization of the revitalization that could really happen here. So really an exciting scale of an opportunity to talk to everybody about tonight. Obviously, the significant history of the site, everybody's well familiar with, but how do we think about that? You know, this has a long, rich history as a community gathering space. How do we honor that, respect that, and then integrate that into the new plan? How do we invite the community in and have a sort of 24/7 life to it in a variety of different uses, and really contribute to the community in a way that it has been quite some. Obviously, the existing site shown here in yellow, but again, really not so much about what's in the site right now. It's about those edges. Belmont Ave, Thurber to the south, Forest and Brockton High School. How do we integrate? How do we create a very legible framework that can also be flexible for the future, knowing this is a long-term plan? There's a large scale to this element, but really, how do we think about that opportunity? Just a few quick images of the existing site. I know everybody's familiar, but obviously an underutilized site right now. But really what we think about from a master planning perspective too is the pedestrian, right? The idea of even these sidewalks really not feasible, not wide enough to promote good pedestrian use. When we think about the future of the site and the vision, how do we promote that circulation, that activation and the use of the site? This is obviously from Belmont Street. As we walk around the site, the western approach here from West Street. Similarly, obviously the underutilized site, but really quite narrow framework for the public realm. When we think about those sidewalks, how do we really improve that, create the legibility and the safety for the community to really interact with the site? Similarly, along Forest Ave and the adjacencies where we see probably a lot of pedestrian potential coming from both the stadium and Brockton High School, facilitating that movement, whether it's kids or others, to the community down Thurber Street. Really a lot of potential to improve that circulation. Again, and then finally down Thurber Ave, this really quite sensitive adjacency, right? These smaller single family homes up against the site. I think as Jim mentioned earlier, the yellow line there, you can see the property line is actually encompassed within the site. But how do we think sensitively about that? How do we respect the neighbors? But how do we draw folks in and then create that circulation and continuity throughout the site? So really our vision is revolving around a lot of these design objectives to share with you all tonight. Obviously reimagining an underutilized site, but really with some mixed use 24/7 vitality that doesn't just make the site active on a weekend or at a certain time, but how is this around the clock going to be a community that feels like it's part of Brockton? Creating a well-scaled neighborhood with safe and active edges. At 64 acres, you know, how do we break this down into a framework that's legible for the community, pedestrians to interact with? How can it be phased over time, and how can it support really this variety of uses that Andrew was talking about earlier? And then obviously creating new biodiverse community open spaces. The idea of a green space network, you know, again, that long history of the fairgrounds and as an open space. How do we bring open space back to this? Invite the community in, use those open spaces, and then use those as communal spaces where people can get together, maybe come and have a coffee, see neighbors that they haven't seen in a while. So interacting that and weaving that network through the master plan, we think is critical to the success of any of that. And then fourth, creating what we're calling the innovation cluster, which is really quite interesting when we think about the next generation of everything from advanced manufacturing. Sometimes it's called tough tech. A lot of our clients are looking at this. It could be climate tech. It could be a battery operator. These are very flexible, single-story high bay buildings and multiple buildings that cluster themselves around folks that are looking into research and development, pilot manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. So really the idea of an economic catalyst and how that can work and integrate with the variety of uses we think that are possible on the site. So here's the aerial of our vision that everybody can see here. And hopefully you can see my cursor. I'm just going to walk around the site. Again, looking due north, you see Belmont along the northern edge of the site. And as we were talking about earlier, really the programmatic composition of the site, we're looking at 1,200 new residential units proposed. And that's primarily along the western and southern edge. You can see here, we're looking at some higher scale residential. Again, that visual marker off Belmont Ave, we think could support that. And then starting to scale the residential down around Forest Ave, that adjacency to Brockton High, and then a much smaller scale, even a townhome scale, as you go Othello and Thurber, really to think about that neighborhood interaction and those adjacencies and being contextual with those neighborhoods. All the while weaving a green space network and road network into those residential blocks, as well as very much a 3-acre community park and open space. We're kind of calling the new front door to the vision in the master plan, really off Belmont Ave and West Street, the idea of this visual marker that the community can rally around, potentially, for the programmatic elements, whether it's a fairground or a community play or that type of element, lined with residential, lined with ground floor retail. The ground floor uses here can be incredibly important to activating the street edges here as well. And then in the center of the site, what you can see is our innovation campus. Again, noted, really insulated from the residential, not just in a green buffer, but also from a circulation network. The block and road networks for the residential don't intersect with that innovation cluster. And it's a series of buildings, about 600,000 square feet. Again, flexible high bay space. We'll show you a few examples we have in the past and how those buildings can interact together in plazas. Some of these R&D folks are different multi-tenants within the building coming out to interact together within that and creating that sort of vitality and economic component, all with its own entrance and exits off of Belmont Ave, depending on what sort of truck or servicing elements they need, but very much a distinct and separate kind of programmatic use of the master. And then breaking down those program uses. So again, the residential component shown here in yellow is that buffer along the edge, but really allowing to integrate with the community. And then thinking about different types of residential, different typologies, we call it, right? These podium buildings, you've probably seen in neighboring communities and obviously in yours, 7, 8 stories, but the idea of carrying that visual connectivity, the idea of having that level of density as that marker on Belmont Ave, really framing that open space. And then as we move along Forest Ave, stepping down to what we're calling this garden style, the idea of not a building with a central lobby, but has individual stoops and entries along the street edge to activate those street edges, 24/7 eyes on the street activation, and much more a smaller scale as you start to step down, going east across the site. And then finally, this sliver, again, along Thurber Ave, really that sensitivity to those single family homes, going down to what we think is much more of a townhome scale. Again, individual entries, stoops on the street, activating the improvements of the sidewalk, bike lanes, that public realm all around those edges, really inviting the community to sort of make its way through. But again, this diversity of housing types we're pretty excited about. Both multifamily, single ownership, all can kind of be a component, we think, of the 1,200 units proposed. Again, the second primary programmatic element is this innovation campus that we're pretty excited about. You can obviously see a few images of here. One of these is a CBT project. These are really flexible high bay single story spaces, and they have a couple of components to them. Obviously, the high bay space where, again, it could be light industrial, advanced manufacturing, tough tech, but they're typically paired with some office and R&D space. The idea that somebody might be doing computational work or pilot testing and then have to go into the back. You can see here, it could be a robotics company. It could be a climate tech company, some type of advanced manufacturing. It really is the next generation of manufacturing. And it really has a broad, diverse range of tenant types, as well as tenant scales, which is what is, we think, exciting. It's not one broad building, but a bunch of smaller scale potentially buildings or larger buildings that are multi-tenanted. So different doors, different entries, keeping that activation and sort of that innovation campus in the center of the building with that separate access off of Belmont Ave. And then when we think about placemaking, it really all starts, like I said, with that framework of a block network. How do we take something that's at a scale of 64 acres? We did something similar when we master planned Suffolk Downs over in Everett that our firm did. How do we think about that not only is legible, we think about complete streets, we think about everything from the street to the bike lane, to the curb, to the sidewalks, to the entry stoops into the residential homes, but they want those to be walkable. We don't want long, long stretches. And then how the open space network that's really anchored by this welcoming mat of a public park can weave its way through these streets. We're talking about tree-lined streets. We're talking about potentially a walking path in this green buffer that surrounds, we're proposing the innovation district. Really is that buffer both environmentally and programmatically. And then again, engaging with the street trees that are across the street on both of those. But those small block sizes really building off the context that's there already in Brockton, the neighboring neighborhoods. Again, you can see here no truck traffic will be in those residential neighborhoods. There isn't that street connectivity. The residential street blocks shown in orange have their own circulation, and then the blue is the innovation campus with a separate circulation, all internal to it with the entry and exit off of Belmont Ave from a different traffic. And then just a few visual renderings, just to give you a sense three-dimensionally of what we're talking about. This is that new open space, that sort of green welcoming mat we're talking about as we look from Belmont and west. The idea of a community space, a playground, a green open space. There might be a stormwater retention pond as part of it. The idea that there could be a community event, a play, a concert happening, but it's a very flexible open space. Could be multiple events, a farm stand, many of the things that are happening now at different times on the fairgrounds, all flanked by residential use with ground floor, very active ground floor uses, retail and or community spaces. So really sort of 24/7 eyes on the park, very active, like we said, 24/7 uses. You don't even have a visual sight line really to the innovation campus, which is actually behind this. It's all really screened, we think, by both the greenery and the building uses, but quite excited to kind of activate this in a new way going forward. Here's a view looking down Thurber Ave, and we talk about that sensitivity to the existing single-family homes, but how do we improve that street? Here we talk about, potential for a new street and sidewalk network, street trees, and here's the scale of those townhomes with the individual entries along the street. And the townhomes themselves, as well as the greenery there, serving as a buffer. You can't quite see it, but the innovation district that's behind this really feels very much like a residential street that's integrated with part of the town. And we're excited to sort of reactivate Thurber and Othello that way and reconnect them as part of the community. Here's a view looking essentially from Brockton High as you come out, crossing Forest Street here, as we step down to this sort of garden home residential that's across the way. Again, that 24/7 life, these active stoops and residential entries that are on there. But now you start to feel the public realm, the sidewalk, the strong legibility of the crosswalks, the signalization, really some of the basic kind of pedestrian safety components that really start to rationalize that block network and really sort of, we think, welcome the high school, the stadium, folks that are going from a pedestrian, maybe not walking there now, feeling like they could walk there, maybe going across the street to a new restaurant in one of the ground floor residential buildings, and really creating kind of a new community atmosphere and dynamic, we think, very much along this with a safe, walkable neighborhood. Finally, this is an exciting view. This is in one of the internal streets in the residential neighborhood. This really feels like placemaking with a new community and residential neighborhood. The idea of some of the larger scale multifamily here with the very active, you can see bright and active ground floor retail on either side of the street, the public realm, the generous sidewalk widths, the parking space, the bike lanes, all of these components that bring kind of an active, rich public realm and a very much a walkability, we think, for the community. The variation of the residential typology, these walk-up stoops that somebody could be sitting on that with a neighbor across from potentially a retail component, and really feeling like the scale of these blocks is creating a new place and some very vibrant, active edges as part of this master plan. And then finally, a view of the innovation campus. This is looking sort of internal to that. You can see this residential buffer in the distance with the higher multifamily. These are these sort of long, low buildings I was talking about. Again, they have individual company frontages potentially or signage. They do have some of this sort of glazing, maybe two-story shared lobby component, some of this smaller office component, and then in the back, this sort of high bay space, the idea of that very flexible advanced manufacturing tough tech component that might have the service docks kind of out of the back. And then grouping these buildings together, the idea, on a lunch break, some of these businesses could be coming out, they could be interacting with the ground floor retail. They might just be coming out for a breath of fresh air, or they might even be interacting with a multitude of companies that were then in those multi-tenant spaces. So, we really see this as sort of the future of that advanced manufacturing and very compatible with a mixed use master plan in many ways. And sort of for that economic vitality that's so critical to making master plans successful. So I think on this slide, I'm going to turn it over to the folks from Bowler Engineering to talk a little bit more about the civil, the engineering components here.
Sure.
Rob, I don't know if you want to make those. Oh, Steven's already there. Thanks.
Yeah, Rob let me in already, so thanks, Phil.
Steve Moderano, I'm with Bowler, where we took a look at the civil engineering infrastructure components of the project. Phil showed you all the fancy slides. I'm going to get into a little more of the technical. Does the site have the capacity from an infrastructure standpoint to support this type of development? So this is the proposal. If you click forward, I'll show you a little bit of what we're working with on the infrastructure side. This just shows how folks get in and out of the fairground property today. The red is full access vehicular curb cuts, so trucks and cars can get in and out at all those red locations. You've got 4 along Belmont Street. You have 1 on West Street, 1 on Forest, or 2 on Forest, 1 near West Street, and 1 at the other end down near Othello. And then there's the 2 blue ones are really limited to pedestrian access at this point in time. So really good access. Obviously, the main access point is Belmont Street, and hence the most existing curb cuts there and proposed, as Phil mentioned on the proposal, is that's where the bulk of at least the Innovation District traffic is coming in and out of. So next slide, I'll just give you a quick overview of the stuff you don't see, the underground infrastructure. Just to show some of the due diligence we did. We've had conversations with Public Works, engineering, fire department, all just to make sure that we understood what was going around here. And I've studied this site personally on previous development proposals as well. So a lot of history here. And the answer is it's a really well-served property. There's really good infrastructure around it. This is the sewer system in the area. You can see there's mains running in the property and all around the perimeter of the property. But the most important piece is the sewer interceptor that really runs from Belmont and West Street down behind Campanelli Stadium. That is a really main interceptor for the city. It has capacity, and that's where all the sewer system in this area flows to today, and it's very proximate to the site. So that's really good news for the sewer system, that there is capacity there. The next slide shows the water system. A similar story. There's been the city's done a decent amount of improvement in this area. It may not seem like it when you see 1979, but in water main years, that's a baby. Water mains, often get 100-year life out of a water main. So to see these newer mains adjacent to the property is great. Those are all 12-inch mains. But the major source, there's a 30-inch transmission main that's bringing a lot of water through this section of Brockton. So there's ample water supply in this area, and then good infrastructure surrounding the property. So that's a good sign for the water system. And then the last slide that I'll talk to is storm drainage. Similar story. There's some mains around the property, but ultimately all the water from this area is going towards Flag Pond, which is where on a major event, the site would still go to Flag Pond. But with the development, you get a state-of-the-art drain system on the property that will have better treatment, large infiltration systems, maybe a pond, as Phil had shown in one of the graphics. So this will be a fully compliant Mass DEP stormwater system per the state's handbook, and significant improvements to the quality of water leaving the property, and reductions in the rate at which water is leaving the property. And then ultimately it will still go to Flag Pond, but at a slower rate than it does today, and much cleaner water. So huge improvements, good infrastructure around, no major issues that we heard from the city or that we've observed on the site. And so from an infrastructure standpoint, at a high level for where we are, it's a really well-served property. So that's a snapshot of the sort of utility infrastructure, and then well-served with electric, telecom, natural gas, if that's a need for the project. So those are available in Belmont Street as well. So with that, I'll pass it to Bob Michaud from MDM. He'll give you a deeper dive on the transportation side.
Great, thank you, Steve. Again, Bob Michaud, MDM Transportation, Marlborough, Massachusetts. We've had a long history with this site as well, working collaboratively with Bowler, and we have the benefit of having exhaustive analysis and integration and discussions with the city, Mass DOT, review of planning objectives that are very much still in play, that are proximate to the site. And what you're seeing now on the screen really is just a snapshot of the key gateways that would serve the site, principally impacted locations, many of which are either recently improved in infrastructure through Mass DOT projects, or that are subject to planning objectives that have been already identified and evaluated previously in prior development proposals for the same parcel. And you'll see that the focus of those gateways really is Belmont Street. The trips associated with this particular proposal, this project, are going to have a high orientation to Belmont Street, eventually west, and of course along the Forest Avenue corridor immediately proximate to the site. The next slide just provides a kind of a higher level view of some of the more recent initiatives that have been completed along the Belmont Street corridor in particular, all the way from the Route 24 interchange to Torrey Street. Really, those were multi-million-dollar improvements that ensured that signal systems were updated and coordinated to promote a high level of capacity and operational efficiency along that principal arterial corridor, as well as to integrate what are known as complete streets improvements that would really foster and encourage walking and public transportation and bicycle travel modes along that corridor, compliant with current DOT long-term planning. You'll also see along the Forest Avenue corridor initiatives that have been identified by the Old Colony Planning Council as part of its Southwest Brockton corridor study that they had completed back in 2014. Elements of that corridor plan have since been implemented. Those to remain really are very proximate to the site, and they include the nexus or the intersection of West Street at Forest Avenue in particular, and the high school driveway at Memorial Drive, where it interfaces with Forest Avenue. And those become particularly important planning objectives as we're looking at how best to integrate access into the property in a way that's consistent with those planning goals and initiatives. The next slide really speaks to the transportation planning objectives. Phil Casey at CBT had actually talked about many of these and how they're now integrated into the master plan concept for the site. First and foremost, that the site is being planned so that residential access really is focused along the Forest Avenue corridor itself, where the bulk of units are facing as a buffer, if you will. And that access would be provided by multiple strategic points along that corridor that are consistent with the planning goals that had been identified by Old Colony Planning Council. And I'll speak to that in more detail in a moment. Second, that we want to ensure that the innovation campus, the tough tech, as Phil calls it, is really insular to the campus, and that its circulation and access is really oriented to the Belmont Street corridor, that it's literally separated from Forest Avenue, it's separated from Thurber and Othello Street, and provides an appropriate level of accessibility to the arterial roadway, not to the neighborhood itself. Third, Phil spoke to the buffering aspect of the site to ensure that the local residential streets are physically separated from the transportation aspects of the property, excepting perhaps for pedestrian connections that would be appropriate and in scale with the neighborhood. And finally, the integration of pedestrian, bicycle, and public transportation features that are very much in line with what was recently completed along Belmont Street by DOT. That is wider sidewalks, bicycle lanes and facilities, appropriate pedestrian crossings, controlled crossings in certain instances that would involve signals, bus stops, and other types of features. So really, combination of objectives is already starting to be baked into what Phil Casey has identified as a master plan concept at a high level. The next slide, as a point of context, because of our prior involvement with the site and because of the infrastructure that has been recently built, that infrastructure really was built to accommodate the type of growth that we would anticipate on this campus. Back about 10 years ago, a little under 10 years ago, when a different development proposal was being evaluated, we were involved with that. The trip impacts and the infrastructure requirements that were associated with that higher intensity use really were accommodated by what now is built infrastructure in Belmont Street. And now, as we look at this more mixed use, lower intensity type development, we see that the relative impact from a traffic perspective is about 40 to 50% lower. And so it very much better integrates into the infrastructure that's already there, that's built, and provides a really nice context for how to plan the next phase of infrastructure, which would be focused principally along the Forest Avenue corridor. And I think that covers the transportation aspects. I will point out that the development will be phased. This isn't going to happen overnight. And the phasing opportunity that this presents will allow for the eventual integration of appropriate infrastructure and the adjustment of infrastructure to meet the needs of each of the phases of development. So I think there's a nice runway for this to happen in a way that allows it to gently integrate with the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bob, Steve, and Phil. Thank you very much for taking us through that. And thanks again to all the members of the planning board for your time and for the members of the public who have joined this evening. And I think with that, I'll turn it back perhaps to Attorney Burke and then Mr. May, I suppose. But thank you to everyone. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight.
I think we can go forward with any public comment at this point. I think the presentation from our side is over, and we're happy to answer any specific questions that the board may have with any of the panelists at this time.
And before we open it to public, Mr. May, just want to remind the community and the board members, this is about not necessarily a site plan review, but more so the specific proposed zoning change. Although it was a nice presentation, that's what we're here for tonight. And is there anyone in the public with their hand up?
Madam Chair, just one quick reminder that because this is a hearing, the people who are providing testimony or comment are providing the testimony and comment to the board, not to individual proponents or opponents. This is a hearing, not a debate. The proponents will give their testimony first, and then when that they are done with their testimony, the chair can close that proponent testimony. She can then allow the opponents to speak for the same amount of time, and when their testimony is done, close that section of the hearing. All the comment, and then the board will take time to review the comments, review their thoughts, deliberate on this idea, and decide if they are going to vote tonight, which I encourage you to do, or I'm encouraging you to do that because we don't have time to have the special meeting. So with that, Madam Chair, with your permission, if you would like to call the
Madam Chair, could I ask could the board ask a few questions before the
Yes,
public?
sir. Yes, sir.
My question for the developer, you had mentioned Suffolk Downs. What other developments would we be familiar with? Or if that's the only one, or what other?
Sure, absolutely. And I think Phil and I, Phil can touch on this as well because he has a lot of relevant experience. So our primary experience is with really residentially anchored mixed use developments with some commercial components as well. So we recently delivered a 450 unit apartment building on Boylston Street, a block south of Fenway Park. And that was 450 apartments. There was 20,000 square feet of retail and a 200-seat performing arts venue as well. And I think, again, that was in a tight urban condition where we were very mindful to the neighbors and all the construction and life safety and, all of the trades that we worked with on that job. And so that's probably, the most emblematic. And then Phil, I know you and your team have, with Suffolk Downs and with the project in Philadelphia, a lot of corollaries to this project as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
Suffolk Towns is probably quite a good corollary for you, Sweeney, and also Cambridge Crossing from a long time ago, a really underutilized rail yard site, as you guys probably know, but ended up being mixed use between really life science and residential. But the synergy of those mix of uses in ground floor retail, we found has been a pretty successful formula, regardless of where it travels, urban, suburban, et cetera. And as Andrew mentioned, the Bellwether District in Philadelphia is actually reclaimed environmental, not unlike what's going on in Everett right now. We're not involved with that, but the idea of, again, a mixed use kind of innovation campus, a little bit more centered around biomanufacturing, but again, tough tech, biomanufacturing have a lot of similar characteristics, a lot of kind of economic.
Okay.
And I think, Phil, one we're working on together, which I think has a lot of corollaries to the commercial component here, is a multi-acre site on Morrissey Boulevard in Dorchester, which is really, again, well aligned with all of these innovation users, tough tech, R&D, climate tech. And so I think that's really been an inspiration for Phil and I as well. A lot of the work we've done along that corridor as well.
Thank you. My last question. You mentioned towards the end you would phase this in potentially. Would there be what would be the most important to phase in first?
It's a great question, Mr. Sweeney. I think, obviously, as we know, even looking over the past 5 years, whether it's between COVID and interest rates and, supply and demand of commercial and residential, that window can evolve quickly. I think if you were to ask us today, our intention would be to commence in the middle of next year with a residential phase as phase one. I think a lot of the infrastructure for the whole site would kind of come along with that, just because it's most efficient to do that up front to a certain degree. But I think our view would be that the right way to start would be with kind of a residential node, a residential cluster, and kind of ease into it from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. So I did like the presentation. It's a beautiful plan. Again, we're here just to talk about the proposed language in this ordinance. I'm not sure why the need for all the free rein on this project without having to go through due diligence. And I am also concerned that this is a heavily congested area already. You spoke briefly about the traffic flow on Forest Ave. I mean, in the morning, in the middle of the day when school gets out, in the afternoon, it is terribly congested now. So just thinking 1,200 apartments, not even considering the other uses for this area, that's a huge concern. But again, we're not here to approve the plan, but I just wanted to give that feedback. We were going to open up to public first, but since we started with the planning board members, Yolanda or Matthew, do you have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a question. I'm just interested in what type of public engagement allowed them to get to this stage and to come up with the vision for this specific site. I know they mentioned engaging stakeholders, but yeah, I guess that. I'm just more interested in some of the details around that piece. And do they imagine any further engagement that will happen?
In reference to community opinions, suggestions, neighbors, is that what you're referencing, Yolanda?
Exactly, yeah.
Who would like to answer that, Mr. Flynn?
I can touch on that. I think from our standpoint, there's been a variety of engagement across different constituencies and different representatives of different constituencies. That's included everybody from the senior administration and department heads across City Hall, to city councilors, many of whom we have, most of whom we have met with, and others who we have, endeavored to meet with. The CFO, assessor's office, police chief, fire chief. And I think, what we heard from a lot of the different constituents, particularly the elected officials representing the different wards and the different neighborhoods, were concerns that are, reflected and addressed to a degree here in the plan. I think, Madam Chair, as you alluded to, ultimately, there will be site plan review where I think, that will be a further forum for some of those discussions. But from a zoning standpoint, this plan reflects the input from a wide array of elected and other administration officials.
Yeah, thanks for providing that. I mean, it sounds like, decision makers and folks who are stakeholders, at the city level have been engaged. I would be interested in like more so residential groups, community-based organizations. Brockton is an environmental justice community. Like there's a lot of planning that has happened to Brockton. I think residents want to be involved in the planning process, and want to actually have a stake and a say in what some of this stuff might be. So yeah, I guess some further civic participation would be ideal. And my next question is, who do you imagine being the intended users of this site and like future residents?
Our view is that it'll the objective would be to deliver housing that is attainable to a wide spectrum of the housing market. And I think, again, from a site plan review standpoint, as we go kind of, area by area, phase by phase, that will be refined a little bit, each time. The goal would be to have some dedicated senior housing, 55 plus and otherwise, and perhaps some associated services. That's something we talked about with the fire chief too, in terms of making sure roadways are sufficiently wide. And if we did do a senior housing component, just understanding that there may be more medical service trips there, and how would we think about that? And, they gave us some good input, including, that cul-de-sacs aren't really ideal for emergency access, and other, other key design principles that we amended and reflected here. I think the hope would be as well that it's, I think something that we would really endeavor to deliver here is a kind of live, work, play community where, I know as Bob referenced with the casino, which was, a while back and very different, but the folks coming and going to this site on a given day would be people who live on the site, who work on the site, who are actually have a vested interest in the site. And again, with all due respect to the casino proposal, but those are more transient visitors to the city who are maybe coming for a day or a weekend. And so I think as we've thought about how this lives and breathes as an organism, it would be folks who live on the site, work on the site, can utilize, the great regional transportation, the commuter rail, whether they're commuting to Boston or downtown Brockton or other areas kind of in the Old Colony region. We've been working with the Old Colony Planning Council to understand some of their key goals and objectives, and ultimately, have this site, serve as a convergence, stitching together, which at the moment is kind of just a whole, on the west side, and have it be something that actually kind of brings these different areas together.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I'm pro development. I think one thing is displacement is something that is in the back of many residents' minds, and people want development without displacement. And if we can have that, and this can be for actual Brockton residents, that will be ideal. And I'll pass it back to the chair. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Yolando. Matthew, anything?
Yes. So if found favorable, would this allow for changes to the plans that we just saw?
Yes, I believe, and again, you know, and I can defer to council and to Madam Chair and Mr. May. I think, you know, the intention here, and I know I'm a lay person, but you know, from a zoning standpoint, this isn't intended to just set broad parameters and kind of allow the range of uses, and then ultimately, you know, site plan review for each kind of parcel or each phase would really be the forum for kind of further refinement. I think, Madam Chair, if that's what you were referencing a couple of minutes ago, I certainly don't want to speak on your behalf.
Yes, thank you. If you look at the notes that were provided, there won't be requirements for lot size, frontage. The existing uses on the site as legal non-conforming uses. Abutters will not need to be notified. I just don't understand why this language was written this way to basically have free reign over the project. Although we will review and make decisions or votes on waivers and other things, it's still the language is very clear that it's taking away a lot of the due process and giving wide range to the developer. Again, I'm pro-development as well. I just think that we should go through due process and still follow some of the requirements that the rest of the developers have to.
Madam Chairwoman, Jim Burke, this is no different than the overlay district that was approved for Westgate Mall. This is no different than the overlay district that was approved on Thatcher Street for the reclamation car business area, wherein the uses were pre-existing allowed, but more importantly, they basically provide free reign uses for items that met the requirement of the overlay district. And I would suggest to you, and I think I said it earlier, and I'll say it again, the language that you have in front of you is not what's going to be approved. There is going to be amendments and modifications. We know that. We're in discussions with the city right now in coming up with mutually acceptable language. That process doesn't happen here at the planning board hearing. That process happens at the ordinance committee hearing and also as it comes before the full council and they provide their votes on amendments. And we, as I've said before, are absolutely open to the suggestion of the city to provide modification of the language, such things as setback. We're basically awaiting that discussion, which will happen before we get to the ordinance committee. So no, there won't be a denial of due process here. This is consistent with every other overlay district that we have in the city.
Okay,
So I do have another question, Madam Chair.
sure.
So if you were to change the verbiage, well, I mean, or keep the verbiage, what would be the downside of changing the verbiage or going in initially with more favorable verbiage for the city and the residents in the surrounding area?
Because of the size of this development and the complexity, it's kind of like a portrait that you don't exactly know what pieces you're going to paint. It is difficult to go ahead. It is difficult to go ahead and identify the specific needs of one section, but we're more than pleased to do that. Reasonable setback offsets. We are happy to discuss it. We're happy to amend it and modify it and bring it forward. But again, that process is underway right now. And it's underway with the law department and the council for the city council. We're pleased to continue.
Well,
Get something that's workable, Mr. Gallagher.
Attorney Burke, when you said that amendments are still will still be happening, who's going to be requesting the amendments and approving those?
Well, it's probably the amendment would be done through the sponsors and co-sponsors, but in conjunction with the discussion. This isn't a them against us situation.
No,
yeah, this is a developer who's committed to a very big job and taking a very big risk to bring home something for the city of Brockton. And yeah, we're happy to sit down with Mr. Griffin, Mr. Minicello, with Megan Bridges, with Shannon, and mutually come to something that's acceptable. And I have no doubt the developer will agree.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
Yeah, I guess, Madam Chair, just to kind of wrap up my questioning. So you would agree to this, the city and the developer for mutual uses, mutual amenities, mutual costs. That would all be worked out between the developer and the city?
I think just to touch on what Jim was alluding to, I think the original overlay that was submitted, we've had various meetings on that over the past 6 weeks, and I think received a lot of helpful feedback. And I think part of the feedback we heard was that there have to be some more specific parameters on certain things. Some of those came from the fire department, some of them came from folks on the planning side, as well as city councilors and others. And as Jim alluded to, we're actively engaged with Megan and Shannon and Rob to kind of reflect those in what has been an iterative process. And so I think again, I think the purpose is to the overlay is just to establish the allowable zoning, and then ultimately site plan review is where a lot of the process and kind of due process, as was referred to, would take place. And so I think that's an important distinction, because it's not as if this is this is the final forum for discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And so my final thought before we open it up to the public is again, it's concerning that this proposed overlay district would be exempt from all standards and or procedures. That's concerning to me. All right,
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
Sure.
So when you say that it'll be coming back for site plan review, but it's exempt from all the standard procedures and processes, what is are you required to come back in front of the planning board for the site plan review? I don't know if I'm understanding that properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing here will be built without a major plan brought before the planning board for their participation, suggestion, and final approval under the site plan review process of every building that's on this site, of every structure that's on this site. It will go before the planning board, and the planning board is identified as the special permit granting authority, so that they can delve into discussions and even have the authority to make waivers of whatever final language we come up with in terms of utilization. So the planning board is the body that will be ruling this entire project in the city.
Okay.
And I think, sorry, Rob, would it be possible, just our general counsel, who's well-versed in this, perhaps Jen Schultz, if she could maybe just be elevated briefly, and then, I want to respect everyone's time.
She is on her way.
Thank you, Rob.
Hi there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I will be very brief. So as Andrew mentioned, my name is Jennifer Schultz, and I act as outside general counsel for Copper Mill and Mr. Flynn and his associates on this project and others. So just from I would say boring procedural, but very significant, crux of the question here is sort of what does the zoning overlay do versus what the site plan review that would come afterwards would happen. And so I did have the opportunity to review Mr. May's memorandum or letter to the board. And I did want to point out that from my perspective as a planning and entitlement attorney in Massachusetts, that zoning all throughout the Commonwealth is really intended and actually required as a matter of law to be broad-based, because it is only pursuant to, as I'm sure all the board members know, the zoning powers given under the State Zoning Act 40A. And so what we're asking for through this zoning overlay is really the construct of what we would then bring forward in great detail, as I would say a sneak peek through the presentation that Phil and others provided, but that it's really only meant tonight to provide a concept of what could be built pursuant to the zoning. But what the review of the zoning overlay that's before you tonight does is it sets maximum envelopes and the list of ingredients, the list of uses that could go into the site. And so what we would be required to do, and what we did ask for, which I think might have been inadvertently left out of Mr. May's memo, is we did specifically propose in the overlay that this zoning, if a proposal comes forward that is compliant with the basics of the overlay, that we would come back, as Mr. Flynn just pointed out, to this board for what we would expect to be a robust and thorough site plan review process. In other municipalities, they call that design impact review. And that as opposed to being required piecemeal, as I think was mentioned earlier on this evening, come back, building by building or piece by piece for variances, for special permits and the like. And so instead, the idea of the way the overlay was written with Attorney Burke's local guidance on precedent was to use and model this after other existing overlay zoning districts in the city, to set the basics of the zoning, and then to be able to come back to the planning board with very specific detailed plans where we fully expect you'll ask for traffic studies and analysis, you'll ask for infrastructure impact studies and analysis. There will be, notices to all abutters and abutters of abutters. At the very least, certainly there can be outreach, and probably should be outreach that goes well above and beyond that. But just wanted to clarify that at least the way we intended to write the overlay proposal, and if we made any missteps, we are absolutely open to fixing that. Is that this sets the broad concepts and constructs that allows us to come forward with a proposal or proposals for a thorough and robust site plan review, analysis, and determination. So happy to answer any questions, but also really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jen. And I think I would just add to that the reason, and I know we received a lot of input on this, why we're starting with the zoning overlay and then the site plan review, is if we had to start with acre by acre of requesting variances, we would never be able to finance any of the development. It would just that the requirement of a variance is something that would absolutely breach any financing and scare off any lenders. And so if it's zoned but subject to robust site plan review, from a genesis standpoint, that will allow us to finance the project and bring it forward. Whereas if it goes the other way, there's a chicken and egg dynamic there that nothing will ever be built here, because it'll just kind of be, it'll kind of die on the vine.
Right, I certainly understand that, Mr. Flynn, makes sense. And if this plan goes through and they do the traffic studies, I'd be very surprised if they came back favorably for 1,200 units to be dumping out onto Forest Ave and Belmont Street in the morning, the middle of the day, and in the evening. I live about a mile from here, and so I avoid these streets as much as I can during those times already. So I just wanted to also put that on record.
No, I really appreciate it, and it actually is, completely consistent with, we met with the police chief and some of the captains today, and they made the same observation that with these curb cuts and access points right, directly onto Forest Ave, particularly at the peak concentration times for folks, students and staff arriving at Brockton High in the morning and departing in the afternoon, that could be a real congestion issue. And so that we just had that meeting this afternoon, so we haven't had a chance to reflect that in our infrastructure diagrams. But I think something we are very much looking to do, and based on your feedback this evening, which is very helpful, as well as the police department's feedback today, is find a way to reroute that residential traffic likely out onto Belmont Ave, and really try to which is seems better suited for it. And obviously we subject to further empirical traffic engineering analysis, but I think your perspective on the concern on Forest Ave is something that certainly resonates with us, and something that we have heard and will certainly be responsive to.
Yeah, and just quickly along those lines to clarify further, the zoning proposal does not include or allow or approve a certain number of units. It is the number of units mentioned, again, proves out that conceptually, with certain sizes, you could fit X number of units. And so all of that is expected and intended to be tested, stress tested and discussed and decided upon during site plan review.
Okay. And thank you for sharing that information, Mr. Flynn, about other people commenting on the same. And in case they didn't share with you, there's over 4,000 students at Brockton High School. And then on West Street, there's another junior high there with, I don't even know the number these days, but Belmont is also heavily congested. All of these streets, I think you've driven them. They're just one ways.
Right.
Single one ways. There's no way of expanding them for the traffic to dump out there. But I think I've said enough about traffic.
No, I hear you. Look, I think one of the challenges and the realities is, and I'd say this, in the most humble way, because it's something we struggle with here and on other projects, is, if all of us together, I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but the city of Brockton, the various stakeholders want to see positive economic development on this site. The one thing that we know is there's going to be more cars there today, or more cars there tomorrow than there are today.
Yeah.
And I think, something else that we have, that folks have pointed to us is that from a citizens of the city standpoint, the citizens did vote to approve the casino, and a lot of the traffic impacts, adverse traffic impacts that came with that. And to the extent we can be 50% of those impacts, with something that was approved by the residents of Brockton, we hope we can do better. And we certainly, again, I think the other thing is, it's not as if 1,200 units will be delivered overnight. And I think the ability to actually do micro traffic studies, parcel by parcel, phase by phase, is something that I think will hopefully allow all of us collectively to do it in a deliberate and measured way that doesn't have unforeseen or unintended consequences. But I think, we certainly agree that it's vehicular circulation is always a dynamic that has to be kind of navigated. And I think, hopefully, and I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, I think the existing conditions on the site today, which it's a bit dilapidated, it's not really generating much of an economic engine for the city. And that I hope that the net benefits of the jobs, thousands of jobs that would be created, and, the housing across, for a whole range of folks across the housing spectrum, would outweigh some of the, vehicular impacts that are, often inherent in a city. But no, we certainly hear you, and we want to work closely to address it as best we can.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to public comment. It's 7:30. We have a long agenda after this. Mr. May?
Madam Chair, if you would open the section of this hearing for proponents to give their testimony, I would appreciate that.
It's now open.
Thank you. People who wish to give testimony or comment in support of this project, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of the screen. We will identify you individually and then turn on your mic and camera. And right now I have Councilor Thompson up. And of course, I will give the city councilors first priority to speak. But Councilor Thompson, if you accept the invitation to become a panelist, you can join us, please. And at one last time, well, it's probably not going to be the last time, but again, this is not a debate. This is testimony to the board. Questions and comments should be directed to the board. If the board chair desires to have the applicant answer a question, she can direct that, but it's not going to be a free-for-all.
Yeah, again, let's respect time here. It's getting late in the evening with a long agenda, so.
Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Planning Board. I'm Jeff Thompson, Brockton's Ward 5 City Councilor. I'm excited to be with you all this evening to begin the public discussion of the development of the Brockton Fairgrounds. You know, first I want to thank Attorney Burke, Mr. Flynn, Mr. Casey, Mr. Materano, and Mr. Mashad for your thorough and detailed presentation. This is 64 acres in the heart of an existing commercial and residential district. So this city has to get the development of this project done and get it done right. I just want to let everyone know, you know, I know there are concerns with the draft overlay district ordinance, excuse me. And, you know, I share some of those concerns, but I am a member of Brockton's Ordinance Committee. I would ask that the Planning Board recommend this matter favorably so that this matter can proceed to the policy, policy people in the city council and the ordinance committee. This is going to be thoroughly vetted. As stated, the overlay ordinance before you is a draft. I look at it as a shell that's going to be modified throughout the ordinance process. As previously stated, some of those discussions have already begun. The city's currently working on its own form-based code that will take a lot of these 35,000-foot perspectives and incorporate them in a clear code that then can be then we can begin drilling down into some of the micro issues. I know there's going to be further discussions regarding the outside traffic infrastructure, a developer agreement, and public outreach. That's going to be a cornerstone of this discussion. We have to have public involvement in the planning of the fairgrounds. But we're at the beginning of this discussion, and so I would ask that the planning board recommend the overlay ordinance so that it can move on and go through the thorough vetting process. And so I appreciate everybody being here today. I look forward to listening to all of you and really, you know, working together to get this development done right. So thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, members of the board.
Thank you, Councilor
Counselor.
Thompson. Councilor Tavares. Hang on just a second. I'm promoting you to panelist. And Counselor, you will need to accept the invitation. Thank you.
Hey, hello, good evening, everyone. I appreciate you guys all. For some reason today, I literally missed important meeting actually today. But the reason I am very excited, not necessarily I lost those meetings. I am more than excited to be here today. I've been on the Zoom like, you know, since 6 o'clock. I hear everything. Literally, just I'm going to be saying this news is the best news since ever being in Brockton, even to hear that what's going to happen in Fairgrounds. Because actually, I live close by, you know, before I become city councilor, I'm always asking myself, oh my God, one day I don't care what's going to happen, what's going to be built there, but I love one day to be built something. And then I believe, like, last year I've been called by the owner. I forgot his name actually right now. We have the discussion. I was tremendously excited with the presentation he present to me. And just to be honest with you guys, my fellows Ward 2 people always ask me the same question. I've been tell them it's going to happen one day. And if it's necessarily, I plan to do Ward Councilor meeting soon, which I'm going to probably bring good news. And I'm not going to be able to say a lot of things because I got to go. I'm a little late already. I am going to be tremendously appreciated if we all be in the same page. I did hear all the concern, but I will be upset if we don't move this project forward for future, because what's going to happen is we're going to bring a tremendous income. We're going to be giving a lot of people job opportunity, and the tax we're going to be having raised a lot of tax. We know Broccoli, we have a lot of problem now. I don't want to even go through all that. Just put it right there quickly. But I appreciate it if we all not be on the same page. This is already we have in front of us right there for the future. It's brilliant. And unless if we're gonna put the people life on risk. But other than that, the presentation was well done, the design and everything else. I hope, this is my hope. Before I die, I love to see that place built exactly the way they're showing right there. And then I totally believe I have tremendous, my neighbors and everybody, we are on the same page because I've been talking to a lot of people. If it's necessarily, I personally myself, I do survey for that. And because some part is on my word tools as well. And so I have to say it. And I'd be, to be honest with you, tonight I'm going to sleep well. I'm just going to leave up to everybody. I know we should be on the same page. Like I said, unless if it's not going to put the people's lives on risk. But other than that, I don't see way to deny this project. I am with this project. This is my dream to see anything built for that place long time ago before I become city councilor. And to be honest with you, since I am city councilor, this is the best news since ever in Brockton. We have this news, what's going to happen. And then it's going to happen. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen because I believe we're all on the same page because it's going to happen. And thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And I don't want to say much because I got to go. And I totally appreciate with the bottom of my heart and then appreciate the investor, appreciate you all guys all. And together we can do better, build better Brockton. And it's going to look amazing. It's a huge gap we have right there. That gap we need to fill. We need to see more investors come like this. We need to attract more investor. Again, good night. And thank you guys all. And thank you for having me. I totally appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Up next is Lisa Crowley. Lisa, you should already be in the room, I hope. Feel free to turn on your camera and microphone.
Are we on?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you. My name is Lisa Crowley. I live over at 250 Howard Street. And I'm not against this project at all. It looks wonderful. And I do hope it does come to fruition. I am very concerned, though, regarding what feels like a giveaway of any local control. Those lines that several other members pointed out, that everything would be by right. And I know that things can be worked out at the site plan review stage, but it really worries me with no setbacks on paper, in print, as part of this. We're giving away a lot. The plans look like those buildings are right on the sidewalks at the edge with no setbacks. And my other concern is the I-1, 2, 3, and 4, the industrial zoning. I would either take out the industrial altogether, or I would add some exceptions, like we did with the gasoline stations. I would put in exceptions for transfer stations, construction debris waste sites, scrap metal distribution centers, as well as any of those kind of really heavy industrial, smelly, and major truck traffic polluters, really. I would hate to see that huge project end up.
Ms. Crowley, you have dropped off.
Have I dropped off?
Or did I?
No.
I don't know what.
You're still on, Lisa.
So
But
what-
I hear that you're in favor, but you have some concerns. I'm sorry, I don't know how many other people have their hands raised, so we could kind of keep it to a minute, please.
Sure, yep, and that's all I would really do. I would add some exceptions to prevent some heavy industrial uses. Because otherwise they'll be able to do it by right and you will have no control at site plan review. You'll just have to smile and take it. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Crowley. Up next, we have Kimberly O'Keefe. Hang on, I'm promoting you to panelists, so please accept the invitation. Ms. O'Keefe, you should be able to turn on your microphone and camera now. Ms. O'Keefe, are you there? We will come back to try to pick her up if she just got disconnected. So, Madam Chair, or excuse me, I want to announce that anybody who is interested in providing testimony or comment in support of the ordinance, please use the raise your hand icon and we will make your camera and or unlock your camera and microphone. And I think I saw Councilor Griffin just a second ago.
Mr. Ray, how many hands do you see?
I had Councilor Griffin's go up temporarily. And I'm assuming that he would like to speak. And other than Courtney O'Keefe, or Kimberly O'Keefe, excuse me. I don't have anybody else.
Okay, so if Kimberly's ready, then.
Or Councilor Griffin.
Didn't you say his hand disappeared?
Yeah, I know he's having some camera trouble.
Okay, so can we let Kimberly speak just for the sake of time?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I can't get my video to work. I'm so sorry. I just want to say thank you to all the council members for this meeting. I live down on the south side of Brockton off of South Main Street. I go by the fairgrounds quite often and have always wondered what was going to happen to it. I have concerns about some of the industrial usage if the project goes forward, but I am very pleased to see that someone has come in that's had experience working with a large area like the fairgrounds that has put forth a proposal for housing, light industrial, office work. I do believe that that is something that the city needs, and I think that that site would be almost perfect for the city for something like that. I am a great grandmother, and I would love to have that available for my grandchildren and my great grandchildren down the road. To have that available for them as an option of living and working in this city. I'm a transplant to Brockton of now 30 years. And I have to say that I would love to see it open its arms to others so that Brockton can continue to grow and continue to be the city of champions. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Kimberly. Councilor Griffin?
Hi, Rob.
There you are. Oh, Councilor Minicello.
Yeah, I don't know if you could see my hand up, but I don't want to bump Councilor Griffin. If he's ready to go, that's fine.
Go ahead, Councilor Michello. I'll wait.
Oh,
Go
here we
ahead.
are. I will defer to my councilor from Ward 3 for the moment. Go right ahead, Phil.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us in tonight. I want to thank Andrew Flynn and his group for making the presentation. I am 100% in favor of this project. I've always believed for the last 10 or 15 years, this project is executed properly, it'll be transformational for the city of Brockton. I also believe it could spur further development going down the Belmont Street corridor. We have a lot of strip malls that were built in the late 60s, early 70s, which are really undersized for today's type of businesses or applications, but they have huge parking lots. So if this development is handled properly, I really think we're in for a true renaissance of development in the city of Brockton. I have spent quite a bit of time talking with Andrew and his team. They are very willing to work with the city, and some of the concerns that were addressed here tonight, they will address. This is not the end-all meeting. This is really the first step in the process. And this overlay, it's going to be a moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts with it. It's just the way it has to be done when you do a project of this scope and magnitude. So I know it's a big project for the city. It can look a little bit intimidating, but with the tutelage of the ordinance committee, the city council, the city, the input from the citizens, and working with these developers, I am very confident we can do a development that the city will be proud of, and also a development will bring much needed revenue to our city. I believe when this development is fully operational, we'll be getting somewhere between $12 and $14 million a year of sustained commercial revenue. And I also believe the further development down Belmont Street could double or possibly triple that. And as you know, the city right now is in tough financial times. We'd like to get a new high school. We'd like to build a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to pay the bills and finance them. So I'm hoping tonight we get a favorable recommendation from the planning committee. We'll get this over to ordinance, thoroughly vet it, get some input from the public, and hopefully move forward with this project. I want to thank you, Madam Chairman, member of the boards, for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I encourage you to vote favorably on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Minicello.
Good evening. I echo the sentiments of my fellow councilors on this project. This is really a good opportunity for the city. Many of the concerns that were previously stated are certainly valid, and we are going to be through the process. This planning board is an important piece of the process. You all bring with you knowledge and expertise, and the more people that take a look at this, the better the outcome is going to be. This is like Phil said, Councilor Griffin said, this is a moving target here. This is a project that we really want to benefit the west side of Brockton, to benefit the Brockton community, to benefit the neighbors. We do not, as the chair pointed out, she lives in the area, as do I. We do not want this to be seen as a negative where people are going to avoid this area. We want this to be a positive where people are going to want to be going to the vendors and to the commercial entities that are involved in this, and the economic development that has the potential to produce jobs for our community and those that may live in this development. This is a really good opportunity to enhance the reputation of Brockton, and it's really a unique opportunity to develop a parcel that size. Now, many of the things that this board pointed out are very valid. With respect to setbacks, those all have to be ironed out. With respect to parking, there may need to be designated parking areas in addition to the 1 unit per unit of housing. I mean, so those things have to be discussed and will be discussed. Green space. Andrew, I met with Andrew. He has a tie to Brockton, which I like. He really wants to make this a great project, and I believe he truly has a sentimentality towards this community because of family ties. And he certainly is going to work with us. I have no doubt in my mind, just by the way he conducts himself. I was very impressed, and I believe that this is going to be something that we all are going to have input on. Another item that was brought up was public involvement. And after the ball gets rolling in your court, we're going to have public meetings, and that was brought up previously. The public is going to need to have an opportunity to have a voice. These plans, are not ironclad. These plans are a moving target, so to speak. Because guess what? We can improve upon what's there, and suggestions by people will end up with a better end result. But this really is an opportunity to move forward, and we will be putting in safeguards. And your input is important as well. So I have no doubt that this is a valuable opportunity for the city of Brockton. Belmont Street is an important corridor, and we certainly are not going to want to make Belmont Street viewed as a negativity to avoid. This is going to work, and we've got to work at it together, and we will work at it together, and we will impose the proper requisites that need to be in play to make sure that we have, basically a quality of life, use and enjoyment for the people that are going to be working and living in this area, that they view this as a plus, not a negative. For instance, the different phases that were mentioned, we're going to have to put in safeguards in terms of timetables. We're certainly not going to want, one phase of the project started and basically, it being abandoned and not followed through on. We have to talk about things like that. But this is really something that's exciting, and all these things can be ironed out and will be ironed out. But a quality of life for the city of Brockton, and the reputation and the enhancement of this community is really before us, and we can really get this thing right. And I have the faith that the more people involved, the more voices such as yours and the councils and the communities, we're gonna end up with something good, because we have a developer that has a true affinity towards the city, and I truly believe that. And I appreciate your time and your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands, Mr. May?
Ladies and gentlemen, are there any other people who would like to speak in support of this zoning ordinance? Please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen to let us know that you would like to address the board. And Madam Chair, at this time, I do not see anyone else with a raised your hand who has raised their hand. If you would like, you can close this section of the proponents, or you can keep it open for future discussion.
Let's close this portion and open it up to folks not in support.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to support, provide comments or concerns in opposition to the proposed zoning amendment, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will unlock your microphone and camera so that you can address the people, or the board, excuse me.
I take that silence as no hands.
I do have a hand up. I have Ms. Veronica Stevens, and I'm promoting her to panelist, and she will now be able to unlock her microphone and address the board.
And hello, Veronica. Good evening. Could you please just keep your comments to a minute, please?
Succinct.
Good evening,
Veronica, if you unmute your microphone, you can address the board now. And while she's doing that, if anybody else wishes to speak, please use the raise your hand icon. And
Sorry about that.
there you are.
I always reach for the top instead of the bottom. Good evening, everybody. I am Veronica Stevens. I live on the south side as well, and I just fear that the ordinance gives too much freedom without oversight. I'm worried that things that need to be done and by every other developer, won't be done by this developer. And it's nothing personal against the developer themselves. And I love the project as it looks. I am very impressed with the way it's combining both the residential and some light industrial. I do have concerns about the light industrial, but they were already discussed regarding restrictions on dumpsters and other, chemical waste and whatnot. But I don't see the benefit to the city overall with lifting the restrictions that we have in place, or at least the guidelines that we have in place. Many people have said setbacks, that's one of them. Green space, that's one of them. There's many different things. If there's commercial there, the parking for the commercial that's going to be required. And I don't see how there's going to be a good oversight if there are no criteria to be met. And unfortunately, I think this ordinance lists those criteria, and it's something that should be seriously worded out before it's passed. That is my opinion. I don't think approving something that isn't specific is in our best interest as residents. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Ms.
Veronica.
Stevens. Again, anybody else who would like to address the board? Please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will unlock your microphone. And just a second, I'm trying to get caught up. Madam Chair, I do not have any other opponents. However, I would like an opportunity to address the board if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And for the record, Rob May, I'm Director of Planning and Economic Development for the city. And the first thing I want to say is that I wholeheartedly support this plan. It's a great opportunity for Brockton. It creates homes, it creates jobs, and most importantly, it creates tax revenue. For the couple of months now, I've been working with Mr. Flynn and his team to shape the vision that you see in front of you now. And Mr. Flynn has pulled together a stellar team who have the experience to deliver a quality redevelopment project. It will be transformational to the Brockton corridor, transformational to the Belmont corridor, and transformational to Brockton. So again, I wholeheartedly support the vision. However, I do have to voice my opposition to the zoning amendment as presented. And I realize that the planning board is just making a recommendation back to city council. And some of these concerns are going to have, actually all these concerns are going to have to be addressed by city council. And I hope that we will be able to do that with Mr. Flynn and his team as we move forward. But as as you've seen from my letter earlier, we do need to support this plan. I just don't think that this zoning ordinance is the way to do it. It's too vague, it's unfocused, and untargeted. There's no controls with regards to residential density, industrial uses, road requirements, public realm, streetscape, all those things. And to say that the site plan will take care of all of this during the site plan review process is not really the place where it should be taken care of, in my professional opinion. For the most part, site plan review can't really prohibit a by right use. It can only really massage the plan to mitigate some impacts. So if this amendment were adopted, the developer could build, and I'm not saying that they will, because I trust them not to, a large car parking lot, a warehouse, next to the Thurber Avenue homes. And I'm sorry if it sounds like a scare tactic, but I do believe that we need to have some sorts of control so that the public knows exactly what they're getting, with some flexibility for the developer so that they can react to the real estate market. And finally, whatever you vote and whatever city council votes, I would strongly recommend that the city enter into a redevelopment agreement with the development team. We as the residents and taxpayers of Brockton need to know exactly what we're agreeing to, especially since the proposed agenda doesn't provide those kinds of controls. We need to know what is the range of development? How many is the minimum number of housing units? What is the maximum number of housing units? What is the minimum square footage, the maximum square footage of industrial uses? And then what are those exclusions that we want to have in the industrial? Again, I think this is a huge opportunity for the city, and I support, and it should be supported with great enthusiasm. I believe there's a second way to accomplish what we want to do here, but I am committed to work with Mr. Flynn and his development team to bring the best possible development forward for the city of Brockton. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. Before the board gives their decision, it should be favorable or unfavorable, not rather than pass or deny. So, Mr. May, if this went through as unfavorable, would this?
Madam Chair, would you like to end the testimony section for the opponents?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Where'd you go? Oh, I thought you left for a second.
Oh, I almost
So
did.
if this went through as unfavorable,
You're
then,
just making a recommendation, by the way.
right, I know, and I just want to be my own head to be clear, and the other board members, concerns that have been expressed by many. There would be the opportunity for Mr. Flynn and his team to work with. Who would they work with? Who would they be working with as far as the amendments, or putting a little more structure around here to follow the due processes and procedures?
They would be working with the city and with the city council's legal counsel, Shannon Resnick, to develop amendments to this amendment that would be introduced in full city council to be added to and recraft this ordinance. So it behooves the city and the city council to be working together with Mr. Flynn and his team to craft amendments to potentially better focus, or whatever the city feels it needs to do. And it's now time for you guys to deliberate.
Tony might be frozen.
Oh, she might have froze, yeah.
Oh yeah, she looks like she froze. Well, as the chair tries to reestablish herself, is there anybody else on the board who would like to start this discussion?
Yeah, I guess we should open it up to
'Cause
deliberation.
we still have quorum.
Mr. Sweeney?
Sure. I think there's, my initial thought with this and the process is this is just, much like Counselor Thompson and Mr. Griffin had said, this is really just the surface. Everything that was mentioned can be worked out now or later, and it has to be. It will go out to public. It will be met with the city council and ordinance and the full city council. It'll come back to us. There's a process involved, and I think, this is just a recommendation, and I would be favorable to it.
Mr. Gallagher, do you want to chime in?
No, I don't have any other questions or any other comments.
And here comes the chair again.
Sorry about that. Okay, where did we leave off, Mr. May?
Mr. Sweeney just commented that he didn't have any opposition knowing that there was going to be opportunity to amend this before city council had its final vote. Did I summarize that correctly, Mr. Sweeney?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Gallagher did not have any additional comments or questions.
All right, so are we ready to make a recommendation?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, James Sweeney,
Yes.
Matthew Gallagher,
Yes.
Yolanda Spinola,
No,
not in favor.
not in favor.
Okay, Tony Gonzalez, in favor.
The vote being 3-1, the affirmatives have it. And it will go back to city council with your positive recommendation.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Planning board.
Thank you very much.
Would the chair entertain a break in the
Yes,
agenda?
please.
Thank you very much, ladies and
Thank you,
gentlemen.
everyone. We
We will
really
be
appreciate
taking-
your time.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Flynn.
Thank
Ladies
you,
and
Mr.
gentlemen,
May.
we'll be
Thank you,
taking a
Madam Chair.
5-minute break to powder our noses. So have at it, kids.
Okay,
Thank you very much and welcome back, everyone.
yes, moving on to the agenda. First up, we have property Mia Meadows. Applicant CLM Development, Representative JK Holmgren Engineering for a waiver request.
You're gonna recognize Charlie, Rob?
I'm moving my way down this.
Thank you.
There he is.
Oh,
Thank you, Charlie. He's joining us now.
Excellent.
Are you gonna be here all night, Mr. Burke?
looks
Let's-
that way.
At any rate, Madam Chairwoman and members of the planning board, thank you very much for allowing us to come before you tonight on this issue. And we have the subdivision coming up right behind us. Why we're doing this, one of the issues, and it was beyond really our control, it wasn't a developer issue. The specific property here, we did not secure an MLC. Well, actually, there was an MLC, but basically it identified the fact that there were taxes owed of a very substantial amount of money by the specific owner. The owner, not through us, but independently, had talked with the treasurer of the city of Brockton. And as a result, secured a letter basically indicating that the special permit process should proceed because upon successful completion, the city will be reimbursed for this amount of money. I think that the members of the planning board were caught with a bit of a dilemma because the language of the regulations said something about the requirement of a municipal lien certificate. Interestingly, what it didn't say is a municipal lien certificate that showed no taxes were due, but it talked about a municipal lien certificate. So in order to get back before you, it was suggested that the proper procedure was for us to request of this board a waiver to be allowed to proceed on the subdivision based on the fact that the taxes were in fact understood as being outstanding in the city, and the city's position through its treasurer was that it should proceed so the city can get the back taxes paid. And I have to answer any other question, but the one thing that's clear, it wasn't Mr. Macy's problem. It's something that he inherited unknowingly.
Mr. Macy is the new owner. Has he already bought?
No. The current owners, this is subject to securing all permits.
So I thought the issue at hand was the back taxes that have not been paid by the
Well,
owner.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The back taxes definitely haven't been paid. However, there's a letter in the original filing when we filed it from the treasurer indicating that the board should allow it to proceed.
A letter from
Even-
who?
Mr. Brophy.
I'm still wondering how this made the agenda without a clean MLC.
Well, I'll go back again, Madam Chairwoman. If you look at your regulations, it does not say a clean MLC. It just says an MLC.
When I sell my properties, I've sold a few, I had to provide. a
You're
clean-
absolutely
I had
correct.
No tax. I had to pay my taxes before I could
You
sell
are
my property.
absolutely
So
correct.
did he not pay his taxes?
I don't represent the owner. I can't answer that question for you. What we're doing is we're moving forward, and it's the city who took the position that it should be moved forward. And there is nothing in the specific regulations that prevents it.
Yeah. It's very hard for a non-attorney to go up against an attorney because you'll get very technical with your verbiage. But I might not say a clean MLC, but that is the point of providing one because I have sold several properties. So I understand that it means a clean MLC.
There is a
Chair?
difference. There is a difference, though, in securing a permit and selling a piece of property, because you're 1,000% accurate that the MLC has to be paid in a sale of real estate. And it would be ultimately, and it's going to be in this one when it's sold.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Ray.
just to try to add some clarification, it has always been the practice of this committee to request a clean MLC. However, that's not what is in writing. And Mr. Burke is correctly pointing that out. And he would like to get your acknowledgement of that so that he can then present his next half of the case, is it?
Yeah,
To get
full
the subdivision
plan.
approved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. May, but again, it's supposed to be, whether it's in writing or not, we know that it's a clean MLC. I don't go split hairs over this. Board members, other questions?
Yeah, I have one, Chair. Is there any guarantee that these are going to be paid after the sale goes through?
100%.
And what type of guarantee is that?
My client won't take the property unless they're paid.
Who's gonna pay them? The current
It
owner?
will be the owner, and it'll be taken out of the purchase price.
So it could be possibly included in the purchase and sales agreement.
Well, it already is in the purchase and sale agreement.
Okay.
Is there any risk for your client purchasing this without paying it? Or does the financial responsibility fall on the current owner after the sale?
Mr. Gallagher, you know what would happen is my client couldn't get financing if it wasn't paid. So I mean, it's just a fundamental issue. This has got to be resolved at closing.
Prior to closing.
At closing, because the closing will come up with the money to pay it.
Yeah, that's where the cash moves around.
Got it.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
So this is essentially like a workman's lien, any kind of lien. Everything has to be clean slated when property is transferred. That's my understanding, and that's my understanding of this situation. Is that correct, Mr. Burke?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The city, if we've been working on this for a while. I think you've seen it before. It's been through Conservation Commission. We had an exciting public meeting on it, and Councilor Thompson was great and has been fully supportive. This is ready to go. We're at the final stage, and if it's approved, the city will probably get paid in the next 60 days.
And there is a guarantee on that.
My client won't buy it unless it's paid, and it's coming out of the purchase price.
So the only risk that your client has is the subdivision being approved or not.
Well, my client candidly took these people on their word and wound up spending many thousands of dollars in consultant fees, engineering fees, legal fees, and he has full confidence that they will honor their word, and they are obligated under contract to do it. So to him, he doesn't see any risk, I think, because he believes that the owners, who will continue to remain nameless, will keep their word, pay the city, and the city will have about $300,000 of extra money in cash.
Okay, other questions from the board?
I guess, Madam Chair, like, why should, like, the city has, in a way, taken, like, we're at this location, we're at this place now, and his client is taking them at their word, but it seems like, why should we trust them now when they haven't been able to, you know, meet their obligations prior? It seems like it's a risk for the city.
There's no risk for the city, Mr. Spinelli. No, they're not paid now, and if it isn't approved, they won't get paid. So if there's a risk, it goes the other way around. The downside is if it isn't allowed to proceed, if the subdivision isn't approved, I am confident that because this thing's going on for about 25 years, that the owners aren't going to pay anyways. So your facility in allowing them to go forward under these conditions in which you have the treasurer submitting a letter authorizing it, will allow the city to get substantial money that it needs in a very short period of time.
And this is a letter from the treasurer of the...
And it's on file with the application.
Yes, it is.
Just, Madam Chair, if I could, as a person who sold real estate for almost 23 years, the money's going to come from the proceeds. It's otherwise there is no money, and there has been no money from the current owner.
Yeah.
That's the only way it gets paid off, in my professional opinion.
Madam Chair, I guess, like, I'm also thinking, what type of precedent are we setting here? Like, if we are moving forward with this process, I guess, in this specific project, are we thinking like other projects or other, you know, situations in the future that might be in a similar vein? They have the opportunity to also go through this, or is this like a one-time thing?
It wouldn't be a one-time thing, but you know, it does make sense that if the city's not getting paid now, they're going to get paid at the sale. If another applicant came before us in the same situation, then the city's going to collect that money as well. So it wouldn't be a bad precedent, in my opinion. But I understand what you're saying, Yolanda, because that was my concern as well. But this is a large amount of money. This current owner owes us. I'm not sure why he's still allowed to be on that property. It wasn't taken, or whatever you do when someone doesn't pay their taxes. Any other questions?
Make a
And
motion.
since there's a waiver, it's not open to public, correct?
Counselor Thompson would like to address the board.
And so is it open to public? Certainly, that's fine. I'm just asking, is it open?
It's not for public discussion, but the counselors, so other people don't have an opportunity to speak, but Counselor Thompson would.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And Counselor, I'm promoting you to panelist. Counselor Thompson, you may now address the board.
Thank you. And again, good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. So this is essentially a policy discussion. Right now, in the eyes of the developer, the land is worthless to him if he's unable to build on it. And so he's not going to buy a property that he doesn't have the opportunity to build on. And so for him to be able to get to the building phase, the permit's got to be issued, and that's going to be part of this next step in the process. But to get there, you have to allow for this waiver that gets him to that process.
Yes.
So once he's able to have the permits to build on the property, now it's valuable to him to purchase the property. And then the city's going to get their lien paid off at the closing. And so I'm sure that I can't imagine an issue like this hasn't come before this board. But if it hasn't before, then I think it should be normal course that if the tax collector signs off on saying that the city is comfortable with getting paid at the closing, then, you know, that should be acceptable for the planning board, understanding that the city's interest is going to be, you know, met, and then allow the waiver, or potentially in the future, don't even require a waiver hearing, just require the city tax collector to sign off on, to basically sign off saying that the city's comfortable getting their lien paid off at the closing. So if that letter is a part of the package, then a waiver, in my opinion, shouldn't be necessary. And that should be the policy of this board, to allow a matter like this to move forward with the tax collector's sign off. But in this case, the fact that, you know, we're seeking a waiver, it's important for the board to understand why. Yeah, okay. And
thank you, Counselor. I appreciate it. Just Attorney Burke, does the tax office have a copy of the PNS?
I don't, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I have no idea.
So I would just suggest, if board members are going to vote in favor or agree to this waiver, that we have a copy of it.
Well, you know, I'm not sure that that's something that I can't speak for the owner. I can't speak for the owner in terms of that. But like, can I say one other thing? This isn't the first time this has happened in cases I've had. And I know other lawyers, the same thing. I have been involved in prior filings before the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, in which this exact same issue came up, and there was never any a question about the ability of the treasurer to write the letter authorizing it to proceed. So this has happened before. This is not brand new.
Not in the 7 years I've been sitting in the seat, and also,
that's fine.
And with all due respect, this should not even be on the agenda without a clean MLC. This is.
Well, again, I don't think that's an accurate statement, Madam Chairwoman. If you look at your regulations,
according to the application, there's a checkbox for it.
It says a MLC. It doesn't say a clean MLC.
Yeah. Yes, we know it should be clean though. Anyhow, okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I would like to request that we have a copy of the PNS.
Can't guarantee it, to be honest with you.
What would be the problem?
We've got another party that has to agree to it.
That is true.
I can't see why either one would disagree when we're.
I can't speak for the seller.
All right, roll call. James?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Yolando?
No.
Tony? Yes.
Thank the board.
Well, we thank you for helping us collect money. But if you could just do me a favor, try to get both parties to agree to turn in a PNS. It's really not the deal.
Guarantee her I'll make that call tomorrow.
And I trust that you will. Thank you, Attorney Burke.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have, we need a motion for return to ZBA 252 Warren Ave, wants to continue. Is there a motion for continuance?
Madam Chair, do we hear any change of plan or anything?
No, this is just a continuance to the next meeting,
Oh,
or
it's continuance? Okay, thank you.
is there a motion?
Motion.
Second,
All right, roll call. James,
yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay, also, we need a motion for another continuance. This is 37 Lawn Street. It's returned to ZBA. They want to continue to another meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve,
Second.
Okay, James,
yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. All right. The next is also, is this a, Evan, number 4 is a motion for extension or continuance?
Field Street is a continuance as well.
Okay, so again, need a motion for just definitive subdivision, Field Street. Continue to the next, another meeting.
Motion to continue.
Second,
All right, James,
yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay, now we're right back to the definitive subdivision, Mia Meadows with Attorney Burke and Scott. Hi, Scott.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members. I'm not sure if Attorney Burke wants to go or you want me to go, Attorney Burke.
No, you go right ahead, Scott. They've heard enough from me today.
I hate to step on his toes, Madam Chair.
That's okay. We've heard a lot about this, this project. So, and it's getting late, so.
All right, I can go really fast.
Okay.
So what we have, Madam Chair, is an 18-lot residential subdivision that Charlie Macy is trying to develop.
Are you gonna pull the plan up, Scott?
I hate it when you ask me that, but I'm gonna try. That's not it. Yeah, that's not it. It's coming, Madam Chair.
I know. You're
That's
a pro
not
at this now.
We're seeing all the secrets, though.
There we go. All right. All right, Madam Chair. So again, we're off of Quincy Street, right across from the school, south of Court Street. We've been before, we've had, as Attorney Burke just mentioned, we've had a kind of a long history with this project. We've been working on it for about 15 months. We've been before the Conservation Commission for both a wetlands resource approval back in July of 23. We filed a preliminary plan with you folks that was heard in January. We had a neighborhood meeting in February, went to the ZBA in in March. We filed our notice of intent in May, and now we're before you folks. So we've been kicking it around to just about every city department. Really, the plan has never changed. This has pretty much been the plan the whole time, Madam Chair. We have a street, Austin Court, which is going to provide frontage for 7 lots. And then we have another street, which is the extension of Debbie Road. And Debbie Road will create 11 lots for 18 lots total. The biggest issue, like any residential subdivision, biggest issue we had on this development was the drainage. And as you can see, there's a couple of large drainage areas. There's one off to the east side of the property, and then one that goes right down the middle of the property, and then a smaller one on the western side. All of those wetland areas take a large amount of water. This one to the east takes about 15 acres of overland flow, both overland and through Debbie Road and Bates Road. The one in the middle and the lower one towards Charlotte Ave takes about 15 acres as well. And what happens is there's a large gradient drop off from the northern side of our property down through Charlotte Road to Pinehurst, about a 20-foot drop. So all of that water is flowing and basically hits the houses that front on Pinehurst. So in our neighborhood meetings, also our meetings with the DPW, we've come up with a couple of ways to hopefully mitigate those existing drainage concerns, Madam Chair. So the first thing we came up with was the construction of a large earth berm on our property. But that earth berm will ensure that water that currently flows towards these houses right here in Pinehurst will get blocked by the earth berm and directed into our detention basin. We have 2 detention basins proposed, one for Austin Court, one for Debbie Road. The basins are way over designed. We're taking more than we would need to meet the flow requirements under stormwater management, just providing more volume to hold back the water that currently flows overland to Pinehurst, and that may impact the neighbors currently. So we're really doing the best we can to not only make sure that we don't worsen any existing situations, but try to help out. As I said, we've got large basins. We have infiltration systems for each of the roofs, so there's no runoff from the roofs that'll be going into the drainage systems. We've gone back and forth with the city's consultant, Beta Engineering, on the drainage design. We finally got a blessing from them on the design. So I think the review agent is comfortable that what we've done is a fair and good design. And we're happy with it, and are hoping the board sees it the same way, and would be happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
So did the department have any issues or concerns with this plan? Evan or Mr. May, were there any?
I did not.
Okay. All right, questions from the board? Is this open for public?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Anyone wish to discuss this or provide testimony or comment to the planning board? Please use the raise your hand icon, and we'll open up your mic. And I see Councilor Jeff Thompson, Ward 5, is in the room already and ready to speak, sir.
Hi, good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Thompson, Brockton's Ward 5 City Councilor. This project is in my ward. As stated by Mr. Ferrier, this process has gone through multiple boards. We did have a public meeting on it. The neighbors are fully aware of what is happening in this land. There's been good communication between myself, the developer, the neighbors. We believe that this development is going to help with some of these water issues that are currently present on this land. And as you know, in our discussion of the fairgrounds, the further development of Brockton is crucial for us to meet our investment goals for our schools, for our capital investment plans, for a lot of things in our city. And the east side of Brockton is one of the oldest parts of our city. It, and it could really benefit from new, modern construction with, well-maintained homes, bringing up the property values of all the surrounding homes. And so I believe this is a good project. I support the project, and I ask that you vote in favor of the definitive subdivision plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else, Mr. May? Any other folks with their hands up?
Madam Chair, could I ask
Sorry, I
a
was
couple of
paused.
questions?
Of course.
I do have one. I'm going to move over now.
All right, then Chief Williams to go next.
Chief Williams,
Okay, you want me to go now? Okay.
please do. And then
thank you.
Frederick, you're after.
Scott, I'm locked out of my computer for some reason where I can't look at the plan.
I know the feeling.
The radius is for the cul-de-sacs. What are they? Or the diameters?
It is let me just see if I can get to that, Deputy Chief. Right, so the pavement radius is a 49-foot pavement radius, the edge of pavement. So the back of berm would be 50 and a half. So it's the city's minimum cul-de-sac requirement, then minus the roadway construction.
Okay, and the length of Debbie Road from Bates Road into the end of your subdivision?
We are building, I believe it is 620 feet of road. And then, oh, sorry about that. There's about another 100 feet from our property line to the intersection of Bates. So it'd be just over 700 feet.
Okay, very good. And planning board members, I have spoken with them about this long ago, and they were able to tie a water line in between the two subdivisions so that we'd have a looped water line, so the people in the subdivisions will have plenty of water, and it'll help the city out altogether. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
So Mr. May, you had someone with their hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Where's my calendar? Sorry.
They're over already. Frederick, you can unmute whenever you're ready to.
Oh, yes, Frederick,
talk.
sorry. Frederick, if you can't unlock your microphone, you may also use the question and answer function at the bottom of the key or bottom of the screen, and we can read your answer or question.
Anyone else with their hand up while we try to
There's no one else with their hand up at this time. Oh, question just popped up. Actually, it's not from Frederick, though. Joe Versaro, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. We live at 60 Quincy Street. Are the properties going to butt right up against ours, or will there be a buffer?
If I may, Madam Chair, what was that address again, Mr. May?
60 Quincy Street.
Well, our roadway down on this lower section is I'll zoom up just so my old tired eyes can read it, is this is house number 106 and this is house number 96 is where Austin Court will be going in. So it's the land between 106 and 96 is where the road will be coming in.
I guess he wants to know if there's going to be a house directly in his backyard, but I can't tell where 60 Quincy is on that.
Right there, Mr. May. 60
Oh,
Quincy
okay.
Street is the lot that's set back off the road.
Thank you. There seems to be quite a bit of space there.
There is. There's a good amount of space from his house to the property line and then from the property line to our two proposed dwellings.
And Joe, I hope that answers your question. Would anyone else like to address the board at this time?
Okay, we'll close that section. Board members. Is there a motion?
Motion
Motion
to
to-
approve under conditions.
Second.
Okay, roll call, James Sweeney,
Yes.
Matthew Gallagher,
Yes.
Wanda Spinola,
Yes.
Tony Gonzalez, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
We also have some waivers, Madam Chair.
Looks like you have 6 waivers that we'll have to do one by one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the first one requires all lots to meet current zoning requirements. Some lots shown do not conform with the current zoning. Variances were granted by the zoning board of appeals for lot area, lot width, and lot frontage as shown. What are you actually requesting? This is more of a statement.
Yeah, it's probably more clearly stated in number 6, Madam Chair. I think 1 and 6 are essentially the same thing. So we need frontage waivers under the subdivision regulation. So like you typically do in the 2-lot definitive subdivisions that we do, we need a frontage waiver to create the lots actually. So I have listed in number 6 the individual lots and the individual frontage that each of those lots have.
And how much frontage should they have?
Required is 175 feet, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And the lots go anywhere from about 100 up to 170. And again, that was granted by the Board of Appeals previously.
All right, so board members, these are the lots and the frontage on the plan. Lot 1, 171 feet. Lot 3, 109 feet. Lot 4, 101. Lot 5, 112. Lot 6, 122. Lot 7, 121. Lot 8, 122. Lot 9, 141. Lot 10, 114. Lot 11, 129. Lot 12, 110. Lot 13, 82. Lot 14, 99. Lot 15, 108. Lot 16, 104. Lot 17, 145. And the last one, lot 18, 122. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve collectively?
Second.
Okay, roll call. James Sweeney,
Yes.
Matthews Gallagher,
Yes.
Yolanda Suola,
Yes.
Tony Gonzalez, yes. All right, so the second one, Scott.
Yes, the second one, Madam Chair, your regulations require vertical granite curbing, basically along the gutters. So in talking to the planning department, we agree with that on Austin Court as it'll meet the existing construction out on Quincy Street. But on Debbie Road, large portions of that development have no curbing at all. And along Debbie Road, it is a Cape Cod berm, so we're requesting that we be allowed to construct Cape Cod berm on Debbie Road on both sides of the street to match the existing neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rondo,
Yes.
Tony, yes. The third one, Scott.
All right, the third one, again, staying on Debbie Road, your regulations require sidewalks on both sides. We're asking on the Debbie Road side to waive the construction of the sidewalks. There are no sidewalks within that entire subdivision. Our feeling is, for us to construct 600 feet of sidewalk that just ends at our property line wouldn't make much sense. So we would ask for that waiver to again match the existing neighborhood, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay, Scott, number 4.
All right, number 4, moving down to Austin Court. We are requesting a waiver to construct 1 6-foot bituminous concrete sidewalk as opposed to the 2 sidewalks. So we do agree with the 1 sidewalk. It will start at the kind of at the beginning of the cul-de-sac, go all the way around the circle, and then come out and blend in with the existing bituminous sidewalk on Quincy Street.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. And the last one, Scott, number 5.
Yeah, the biggest one I feel like, Madam Chair, we've talked about it on various cases. It's requesting a waiver from your requirement of 34 feet of pavement. We've talked a lot about it. A lot of cities and towns are all the way down to 22 and 24 feet. Your travel ways in commercial and retail developments are 24 feet. In this case, we're asking to construct both roads, Austin Court and Debbie Road, with 28 feet of paving. all of the houses will have 2-car garages, 2-car width driveways, room to basically have 6 cars within their own property. So the reduction down to 28 feet really would pose no public safety issues at all, Madam Chair.
Unless they have company or birthday party.
As long as they just park on one side, Deputy Chief Williams would still be able to get around and get to his destination in his fire truck.
Deputy Chief Williams, you agree with that?
The one time I call him out, he dropped off.
Oh, sorry, there you go. Yeah, we'd be able to get by as long as they're not parked on 2 sides of the street. Would make it a little tough, but I don't see that as being a huge problem down there.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. All right, we're done with all the waivers. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate the time and the consideration.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a definitive subdivision, 15 Carlin Road. And Scott, you're up again.
Yes, ma'am. Scott Farrier, Holmgren Engineering. Unfortunately, in my excitement to call up these plans, I erased all those other plans that I had ready to call up, Madam Chair. So I'm hoping I can just talk my way through this one. I'm gonna stop the screen share. But what we have on Carolyn Road is a definitive subdivision to divide the existing property into 2 lots, which would allow us to go to the ZBA for a variance to turn the property into a buildable lot. It's an existing 15,000 square foot property, and we're hoping to divide it into two lots. The existing home will have 80 feet of frontage. The new lot will have 70 feet of frontage. There it is there. Thank you very much, Evan. So that's what we're hoping for. It's our typical 2-lot definitive plan that we've had before you folks in the past. And this will basically just allow us to get in front of the ZBA for their decision.
Okay, I see the department does not have any issues. Board members, questions?
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead,
Quick
Matt.
question. Thanks. So have the abutters been notified about this?
Yes, as part of the definitive subdivision, we notify all about us.
Yeah, I took a drive down there yesterday and I saw that the lot itself isn't a large size, and that it's going to be a pretty small lot, but it would also be pretty close to the house next door. I just wanted to make sure that those people were made aware.
They were. It's to be honest with you, Mr. Gallagher, the lots, it's been before the Board of Appeals in the past. I'm not sure exactly, 5-8 years ago. It's been kicking around. The owner, Kevin Jones, has talked to all the neighbors about it. In fact, there is a letter of support from the direct abutter up here at 27 Carolyn Road. So Mr. Jones has certainly done his due diligence in the neighborhood to make sure everybody was aware of it.
Great, thanks so much, and
thank you.
I'll set, Madam Chair.
All right, and we do have someone, Frederick Mughal, who's also in favor of this. They live at 75 Debbie Road next door to the project. I just want to go on record that they are in favor.
So, Madam Chair, just for clarification, that was for the Quincy Street subdivision. He
Oh,
typed that
Harrison
in at
Street.
the end of that one.
Debbie Road is not, okay.
Yeah, that was for the last case.
Oh.
Different girl.
All right. All right. Any other questions? So open to public.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to make a comment, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will unlock your microphones and camera. And Madam Chair, at this time, I do not see anyone who would like to make a comment.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve
Motion.
standard conditions.
Second.
All right, roll call, James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rondo,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Okay.
Thank you, folks.
You're welcome. Next, we have another definitive subdivision for 11 Monarch Street. Applicant is Victor Tavares with JK Holmgren Engineering.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Same situation, Madam Chair. We've got a property on Greenwood and at the corner of Greenwood and Monarch. It's an existing lot. We're hoping to divide it. It's in an R2, which is in a multifamily zone. We're hoping to divide the property and create one new buildable lot that would then house a two-family home. The new construction would meet all of the zoning requirements as shown. We have parking for each of the units. So again, we're just hoping for your definitive subdivision that will allow us to get in front of the Board of Appeals in the next meeting.
All right. See, no issues with the department. Some waivers will have to be discussed. Board members, questions?
Yep, I just have one question, if I may. Are there any other multifamilies in this little neighborhood?
Yeah, directly next door is a three-family, and boy, I usually have it on the plan, Mr. Gallagher, and I apologize that I don't, but there are along the road here, there are multifamilies. It's kind of the it's an old neighborhood, so there's a lot of up and down 2 and 3 family homes in the neighborhood, and it is zoned R2 multifamily.
Got it. Great, thank you.
Other questions? All right, if not, we'll open to public.
Ladies and gentlemen, those wishing to make a comment, please use the raise your hand icon and we will unlock your microphones. And I have one raised hand at the moment, and that is Kimberly O'Keefe. I am going to move you over into panelist. And she's coming over now.
Hi, am I on?
Yes,
You are on.
Okay, I live on Monarch Street, the very end. The proposed lot has a triple decker on it. That is one of only 5 residents in this neighborhood. All the other houses are single families. Currently, there is no parking for all the residents of the triple decker. So dividing that lot will create a bigger parking situation than we have right now. Secondly, the sewer system that comes from Brookside Avenue down the dead end of Greenwood around the corner to Monarch is a private sewer system. And when it was put in, it was not put in to have all the houses that are hooked into it. The city, that's my main concern, because I'm at the end of that sewer line. If something happens further up the line, it's going to come into my holding tank and possibly into my house. So those are my 2 concerns. That lot, I don't think is big enough to put a 2-family structure on if it was divided. And the parking right now with the current 3-family unit that's there, they don't have enough parking. They're parking in the street year round, which creates issues in the winter with plowing the street down to my house.
Thank you, Kimberly. Scott, what do you have for parking for the?
It's she's not wrong about the existing parking. As Mr. Sweeney would agree with, the parking is really the biggest issue we deal with at the Board of Appeals, and it's a non-starter on a lot of these jobs. Currently, they have pretty much a single width driveway right off of Monarch Street, so it is for 2 vehicles. There is an existing driveway up off of Greenwood. It sounds like realistically nobody parks there, because then it's a long walk to get to your front door. So as part of our proposal in the presentation we would have to make in front of the Board of Appeals, we're proposing an extension of the parking, the driveway for the existing 3-family. So there would be 6 parking spaces on Monarch for the existing 3-family, then 2 spaces on Monarch for our new home, and then the existing 2 spaces off of Greenwood Road for the 2nd family. So we're showing 10 proposed parking spaces, Madam Chair, for the, what would be 5 residential units.
Okay. Then, you see any issues with the sewage?
The sewer, we have it planned, we have it sewer available both on Greenwood and Monarch. We're not aware that it's a problem tying into it, but that's certainly something that we would have to resolve at the building permit process, going through both DPW and engineering at that point.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else, Kimberly?
Currently, the driveway that is off of Greenwood holds 6 vehicles. On Monarch Street, there is no paid parking for any vehicles. They currently have 8 or more vehicles that they're parking for that triple decker. So they end up out on the street, and they park on the street year round, like I said, in the winter, and the DPW cannot get a plow down the street when they do that. So parking is a huge issue. I don't know how many people are living in that triple decker, but they have more than 2 vehicles per resident or per floor of that house. So, and to add another 2-family residence with another minimum 4 vehicles to park, I don't see it happening. I don't see dividing that lot and putting a 2-family in, that parking would be feasible the way it is, especially the way it is right now. And as for the sewer, it's gravity. We all have pumps. We have holding tanks and pumps in our holding tanks to pump everything out to Greenwood Avenue because the city's sewer system is gravity fed. So that might be something that they need to look into. But I know when I bought my house, the previous owner hired an engineer, hired the construction firm, and had the sewer line put in from Greenwood down to my house. And the system was designed for 3 single-family houses only. And everybody in the street, from my understanding, is hooked into it. So adding more, a 2-family house into something that is already over capacity is a disaster in my mind, unless the sewer line is upgraded by someone other than me. And I will stop talking now.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate the information.
Okay.
That's definitely something. Was the department obviously not aware?
Which department, ma'am?
Oh, no, you're all set, Kimberly. I'm talking to the planning department.
Evan, did we get any comments back from PK?
Not on this, no.
So say this plan was approved, it should be contingent on, what's the proper mechanical term, increasing the holding tanks, increasing the sewer ability.
If I may, Madam Chair, I mean, like I said, if it goes through you folks, it has to go through ZBA. If we were there, all of these issues get flushed out through the building permit process. All of the city departments have to sign off. So engineering has to sign off on the building permit, as does DPW. So I mean, they're the ones that would tell us that we can't tie in and we need to upgrade it or find another place to tie in on Greenwood as opposed to Monarch. We could tie into the gravity line on Greenwood as opposed to the force main on Monarch. So we do have some options, but the DPW would basically direct us as to how to do that during the building permit process.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with their hand up, Mr. May?
No, ma'am. There is nobody else in the audience.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve, standard conditions.
Second.
Okay, roll call, James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Rondo,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Right, thank you. Next up, another definitive subdivision, 90 Leeden Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And
My last one. So, property on 90 Layden Park Road. It's kind of a weird, street layout. There's three streets that kind of all blend in, to a weird intersection, and, we happen to have the property right at the corner. So the existing property is about 25,000 square feet. It's zoned R1C, single family residential. The owners are hoping to use a skinny strip next to their existing house, a skinny strip of land on Paulin Ave. They have about 21 feet of frontage. They're hoping to use that as their frontage and access for the new buildable lot, Lot B, in order to put in a driveway and build a single family home, which again is going to have to go back before the Board of Appeals if we're successful with you folks tonight.
this pork chop lot was the first time I'm hearing this, but board members, any questions or concerns?
Madam Chair,
Yes, James?
That wasn't me. I think
Oh,
that was Fire Deputy Chief.
Oh, okay, Deputy Chief?
I think we both talked at the same time, Jim. Through you, Madam Chair, to Scott, that's gonna have to be a fire access road that's built to hold a truck with a T turnaround, given the layout, so we can get into the dwelling.
Even if it's only 100 feet from the street, Deputy Chief?
Yeah, you have to bring us into, I want to say it's 25 feet to the dwelling. You've got what, a 21-foot frontage for the property?
Correct.
That, this is a tough one.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd have to bring us into at least 25 feet of the property and then give us a turnaround in there. That's by code.
Right. Thank you. Matthew? Nothing, Matthew?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yolanda?
I don't have anything.
All right, open to public.
Ladies and gentlemen, those people wishing to comment, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that icon, we will unlock your camera and microphone and allow you to address the board. And Madam Chair, I do not see anyone using the raise your hand icon at this time.
So, I don't know if you know, Mr. May, what is the average frontage that the rest of the neighborhood has?
I do not know off the top of my head.
The lots are pretty good size, Madam Chair. They all have, I'd say 100 feet of frontage, 120 feet of frontage. Most of the lots right there, we've got a little bit of extra property, but I'd say most of the lots look like they're about 100 feet deep and, 100 by 100 or 120 by 100. So they're about 10,000 to 12,000 square feet.
So this property would only have 21?
It has a total of 24. So Lot A would have 11,000, which is about the same as the neighbors. Lot B, the new lot would have 13,000.
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Sure.
Would this pose any safety issues to the residents if fire truck wasn't able to get there? To get down that driveway?
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Going on what Deputy Chief Williams said, if we leave it the way we have it proposed here, I think it's pretty safe to say it would have zero chance of getting through the Board of Appeals with the two fire chiefs on the board. so really, no matter how you folks vote on it tonight, I've got to change the plan and basically fatten up that driveway and provide a turnaround for the fire department. So,
All right.
you know, however you folks, I think I've got to change the plan, Madam Chair. So, you know,
So
if you're comfortable, I think I could ask for a continuance and maybe update the plan and get it back to you folks for the
Yeah.
next meeting.
I was gonna ask you if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, there's no sense going forward and letting the ZBA just deny it.
So is there a motion for a continuance?
Motion for continuance.
Second,
Right, roll call, James,
yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. All right, thank you, Scott.
Thanks for your time, folks. Thanks for your patience.
No
Kevin,
problem.
thank you. Good night.
Right, next one up, site plan review, 48 North Pearl Street. Bay Colony Group, the applicant is Douglas King.
Madam Chairwoman, Jim Burke, I'm going to be here with Bill Buckley, the engineer, and this is the property at 48 North Pearl Street that secured a variance. I plan to provide renovation of the existing structure, and then I'm not sure if it's a 6 or 8 unit. Bill can go ahead and tell me, it's late. But brand new structure. They've got a great plan, and I think you'll like it. Bill, go ahead and present.
Good evening, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and I'm representing the applicant, Doug King. And I'm going to share my screen. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, as Jim just said, this is at 48 North Pearl Street, and it's immediately across the street from Bauer Avenue. And it currently contains an existing 2-story building that's an office, which is about 2,500 gross square feet, and that's this building up front here. As I said, the lot's about 9/10 of an acre. It's about 110 feet wide, 363 feet deep. It's bounded on this side by a cemetery. This is vacant land on this side. And I think this is some type of medical facility under construction in the rear there as we're looking at it. So the current access to the building is right in this area here. You really can't see it on this drawing. And there's a parking lot to the rear. And what we're proposing is the construction of an 8-unit building in the rear, which is this. It'll be 2 stories, 8 units, approximately 35 feet high. And then this building here will be rehabilitated into a 2-unit duplex. So it has an access. We'll be having access from both sides, although it is going to be a one-way access. And you can see the arrows here. You'd come in from the north. It loops around and goes back out to the front. We have a total of 24 parking spaces on the site, which is 2.4 spaces per unit. We have a little pull-out area here that's for Amazon. That was a request that was made, I think, by the ZBA. This will be the area where there is a dumpster pad, so dumpster trucks could come in, pick up, and then head back out. We've also modeled this for the fire department. So we used the Pierce Arrow 105 model to show how a fire truck could come in, come around the site and go out. And some of the other things we've added, again, these are some comments that were made during the ZBA process. So we've added this area here. These are paved areas, like 2 tracks, so that if any emergency vehicles had to get down the side of the building at that point, they could get there. Some of the other comments we've made, again, to address some of the issues we received from the professional staff. We've added a fire hydrant down here. We've moved the fire department connection to this corner here so that it's in the front and accessible. The site's going to be served by municipal water and sewer, of course. The lighting on the site, they're going to be 10-foot high posts They'll be along the driveway, and we do have a lighting plan. It's LT1. And it's, we've done there'll be dark sky compliant lights. And we put wall packs on there again, dark sky compliance. All of them are LED lights. We have a landscape plan that was part of the submittal. And what that is we put a mixture of trees and shrubs around the site. And you can see some representations of them here and around the back. Again, as part of some of the comments we received from the professional staff, we've changed some of the pines or arborvitaes to hardwoods back in that northwest corner. The stormwater system is underneath the parking lot. So this way this site is pitched, everything is pitched from the front to the back. Is about a 3-foot elevation drop from the front to the back. So everything goes in that direction. Along the north side here, this is the cemetery wall. It's a beautiful stone wall along there. And one of the elements we proposed is we'll be also creating a stone wall along this west side and along the south side that will tie into that wall. And there'll be a gate in the back here for emergency access. As I stated before earlier, the drainage system has been designed to capture all the runoff from the site. And as I said, all of it flows to the back. So the roof drains for each of the buildings, this building and that building, will go into the system. And then the parking lot drains. There's one catch basin in it, and it's this area right here. And it has 2 tree box filters, which will be on either side of the catch basins. And the purpose of those tree box filters is to clean the runoff to at least 80% TSS prior to it going into the drain system. And then what little runoff comes into the back here from grassed areas or the small paved areas that is not being captured. We have a rain garden located in this back corner, again, by the walls. So runoff physically can't leave the site. So we'll be retaining all of it on the site. And I think I'll stop right there. That's most of it.
All right, thank you. You see the concerns from the department regarding adding a manhole?
I'll just jump in. The sewer line from the residents in the back, the new building, I just didn't look like it had a manhole where it connects to the sewer line in the street. So
No, you're right. It's a service. Let me open that sheet. Let's look at that. And let's see. So this is that, this is the landscape plan. Let me go to the So this is the sewer that connects to it right here. And you're right, there is no manhole. We're just tying directly into it. I think the issue out there, let me zoom in here. Difficulty with tying in a manhole or creating a manhole out here. As you can see, the gas line is right there. For some reason, the gas is almost on top of the sewer. So, not that it's impossible, but it would be difficult. We'd have to probably reroute that gas line if we decide to put a sewer manhole in. But if that's what the city wants, then we'll do it.
All right, thank you. And then continuous sidewalks at both curb cuts?
Yes, so the sidewalks are right here, the bituminous sidewalk that crosses. And yes, we can put in handicap accessibility points there.
I think what he's referring to is that the road rises to meet the sidewalk. The sidewalk doesn't dip to meet the road.
So so they were talking about, they're doing a bunch of pedestrian improvements just to the north of this, at the bus station. So we're just thinking it might be beneficial for at the curb cuts, the sidewalk just continue along flush the whole way, where cars entering come up and over the sidewalk, instead of people walking go down into the road. You know what I mean?
Got it.
So it's more of
Got
like a pedestrian area that cars pass over as opposed to the other way around.
Yep, that's fine. We can do that.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Okay, open to public.
Ladies and gentlemen of the public, if you wish to make a comment, please use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. At that point in time, we can unlock your microphone and camera. And Madam Chair, I do not see anyone raising their hand or whatever.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve with standard conditions, in addition to adding the manhole at the road connection with rear building sewer line and implement continuous sidewalks at both curb cuts.
Second.
All right, roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Yolanda,
Yes.
Tony, yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up. Site plan review for 159 Torrey Street, Thorny League Golf Course. Oh, my neighbor. Representative Next Grid.
That should be Mike, and he's coming over.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Pattison. I'm from NextGrid. I'm here to present our application for a ground-mounted solar installation proposed at 159 Torrey Street in Brockton, Mass. The board originally approved this project on June 1st, 2021, but due to unforeseen delays in our development process, unfortunately, our permit expired. All right, so let's see. Share my screen.
Solar panels are the way to go these days.
Yes, they are. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so current property 159 Torrey Street is located in R1 zoning district. It is currently a vacant 6-acre farm. There's a sewer easement running through the eastern side and a material and soil storage area on the southern side. The proposed solar array is 1,029 kilowatts DC, 498 kilowatts AC, ground mounted solar array connected to a 415 kilowatt, 1,600 kilowatt hour DC coupled battery system. As you can see here, the electrical components and battery will be here, the southeastern portion of the property. Let's see here. There is so that then the electricity will be transferred off of the property. There we go. So the electrical power gets transferred all the way down here along an underground electrical cable across, and then it connects to West Street to the main grid. Let's see. Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's just okay. I was gonna say, I see that it passed through tech review, all concerns were addressed.
Yes, the only additional thing that was brought up by the fire chief was, here, I'll go to that page. There is a material, it's basically, there's some dirt piles in this area here, and it was requested this area be turned into a gravel turnaround area for emergency vehicles. So that has been added into the plan, and then they wanted to make sure that the access road was a 20-foot wide access. It was agreed by the ZBA that during construction, all construction access will come through an easement through the country, through the golf course, up through here off of West Street. It's my understanding is it's the existing cart path. It's a paved 20-foot wide road.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could, are there any changes from the previous plan, or is this the exact same plan?
There was no, it's actually the same plan. The original plan was it showed 18-foot wide access road. It was requested that was expanded to 20-foot. And then we added in this because this was originally a separate sheet so that it could show the easement B, which is the access for construction.
Okay. And that's the only change from the previous plan?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
All right, other questions?
Madam Chair, I guess I just have a question in regards to like maintenance and yeah, I guess like how who's in charge of that, and what's the process of like cutting down brush and maintaining that site. There have been other solar sites in Brockton that haven't been well maintained, so that's my one concern.
So it is a project that we'll be owning for the life of the project. We have an operations and maintenance agreement that we will have. The site will be accessed twice a year for normal maintenance. We only plant basically native grasses and wildflowers, and then we only trim them if they are causing any loss of production. But we're also trying to keep the the vegetation border around it to border it from the neighborhoods. Yeah, I know I butchered that word.
It's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Of course.
Is open to public.
Ladies and gentlemen, those wishing to address the board on this project, please raise your hand. Use the raise your hand icon at the bottom of the screen. And Madam Chair, I don't see anybody that's raising their hand.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve with standing conditions.
Second.
Okay, roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Does Next Grid do houses, single homes too, or just big?
No,
clusters?
sorry, commercial only.
That's okay. I'll find one after my electric bill doubled this last month.
Yeah, I called a couple companies as well. There's a website online that basically they just give you a quote. I
Okay,
don't know.
find it. I will find it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Roll call. James,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Yolando,
Yes.
Tony, yes. Amen. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. Have a wonderful
Have a good night, board.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.